of Labor Statistics data. It's just graphing it for you.
That's fine. That's why I said we're both correct. I'm looking at hourly. You're looking at weekly. It's fine. I'm happy to look more into the
no distinction.
weekly
If you
earnings.
change the time, it doesn't change the level of wage.
But it doesn't even matter because the weekly
Yes, it
earnings are
does.
still.
What are you talking about?
Wait, Parker, can you like control yourself? Like a little impulse control would be nice. Are they or are they not the weekly wages trending upwards in the graph that you cited? Are they trending upwards or downwards?
If you say, are you saying in growth rate or is it going up?
In growth rate, it's going up. It's the
In
incline
growth
of
rate,
growth,
it's going down comparative to 2024.
No, the incline of growth.
Wait, can I
just
go over the
as
numbers
currently-
again, Cam?
Yeah, the increase.
So the change?
Dude.
Oh
the
my God,
increase
bro.
in growth.
I got a
is
flag,
just as
dude.
steep
Second
now
account.
as it was.
Second account, Parker?
What? What happened? He got a restriction?
Yeah, he'll be back.
Okay. The graph that Parker cited shows an increase or a trend upwards, a trend that was just as steep as it was in 2024. You guys are using this. This is the problem, is that you guys are using this data to say that we're in economic free fall. That's the kind of language that you were using yesterday, saying that Trump has destroyed the economy and absolutely decimated the cost of living for Americans, blah, blah, blah. But to be real, like the economy has slowed down a little bit. That's undisputable, but it's
Okay.
completely stable. There's
So then-
nothing.
So then you concede.
No, the economy is completely stable. You're a liar. The economy is not in free
The
fall.
claim that you made was very clear. The claim that you made is that we were lying when we suggested. that
Yeah, because the
growth
economy,
rate- Cam,
the economy by
you're
every
interrupting
metric
me, my
you cite
friend.
is still trending upwards.
I would really
It's-
appreciate it if you would.
We're not
interrupt
declining.
me.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Cam, the claim that you made is
Go
that
ahead.
we were the claim that you made is that we were lying when we told our viewers, when we talk about this on stream, that the growth rate in real median wages has gone down. That's a claim that you made.
Yeah.
So you've now admitted that things have slowed down. The growth rate is still growing, just not growing at the same rate that it was
you're
under
talking
Biden.
about the growth rate
So
of
now
percent.
you're still interrupting me. So now you're shifting your claim away from Dean, you were lying when you said that the growth rate in real median wages has slowed, to now saying, Dean, you're lying if you suggest
You
the
didn't say
economy's
it had
going down.
slowed. You said it was going down. And I'll play a clip of this when I
Yes.
post the pre-record. You said it
Yes,
was
so
going down.
because it is.
Like the real
Yes.
median wages were going down was your exact language, which is false.
So the growth
That's
rate
what
in
you
real
said.
median wages is going down.
You said that real median wage growth was going down. The growth of real median wages is up 1.4% over the past year.
Growth.
The growth
Keynote
of real
on the
median
word
wages
growth.
is up 1.4% over the last year,
So-
according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So you're
this is-
using
this
quote
is what is
language
called-
to mislead your audience, and
This
the
is what is
premise of
called
what
a
you're
comprehension
building
error.
at is that the economy is in free fall, which is
So-
false.
So Cam, when I talk about the economy being really bad, in free fall, quote unquote, as many journalists have suggested, okay, I'm not just merely going to be pointing towards the fact that the growth rate in real median wages has gone down. Okay, I'm going to be pointing towards a holistic view that would be made in consideration of many facts that I'm sure that we
Yeah,
could
like-
talk about while you're up here. But you're
like other
attempting to
lies
use
about
this,
the manufacturing bankruptcies
So you're
that are caused
attempting
by
to
regulatory
use-
landscape.
my friend. You're
Not Trump
attempting to
policy.
use. Okay, you're attempting to use the fact that I am truthful and accurate in saying that the growth rate in real median wages has gone down to indicate that, because they're still growing, that we're not in economic free fall.
You're
That your
saying
original-
you're-
So Cam, I'm
Dean,
not going to
Dean,
be. There's
Dean.
no argument that's going to be made here if you continue to act like a petulant man-child.
This is what you guys have been doing the entire time I've been talking to you, just cutting me off. What you're saying is that
Right,
the
yes.
growth.
That's
what
a
you're-
projection, Cam.
What you're saying is that the growth rate
It's a
itself has
projection.
slowed. But when people hear that, what they hear is that it's not growing at all, that it's downturning, because that's the way you make it sound. And you do that on purpose.
Oh, okay. So now you're conceding, because at first you were arguing that what I was saying was literally false. Now you're arguing that it's not literally false, literally true, but rather only misleading.
No, you're saying something.
Oh, wait, which
that
one
you-
is it?
You're saying something that is
Oh.
intentionally misleading to the point where it sounds like something
Oh.
completely else, completely different when you say it.
But your claim
to
wasn't,
imply
Dean, you're
some
saying
kind of
something that's
economic
intentionally
catastrophe that's
misleading.
not present.
Your claim was, Dean, you're saying something that is false. And I disagree that it's misleading, by the way. I think that's just a comprehension error of your
Well, maybe
own.
you should stop
and we
doing
could
it
talk
then.
about that, but we need to be clear here. Cam, your
Yeah, but what
claim
you're
was that
saying
I
is-
said something about the growth rate of real median wages that is false. And now that me and Parker have given you data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics to prove to you that it's not false and that it's true, you are just repositioning your argument to not be the claim that what we said was false, but to rather be the claim that you think it's misleading. And I need to point out that those are two very different arguments. arguments that I do not want you to obfuscate in between. So if you can now concede your first argument, which was not that what you think I'm saying is misleading, but rather that what you think I'm saying is literally false, we can talk about the new argument that you've shifted the goalpost to, which is the fact that you think it's misleading.
The logical conclusion that anybody would draw from hearing that real median wage growth is going down is that the 12-month percent change in real median wages is down. It's not.
It's what is called a comprehension error.
Right. You're saying it's growing less fast than it was before.
Yeah, that's what the growth is.
Nobody hears that when you say that.
That's what growth is.
Something. Yeah, no. Real median wage growth is when median wages are going up, which they are.
Let me give
That's
you an
what real
analogy
median
here.
wage growth is.
Let me give you an
median wage
analogy
growth
here.
is median wages growing, which is happening.
Let me give you
it's not happening as fast as they have been.
The way
past.
that we use the phrase growth rate in economics is to denote the rate in which something is growing.
Okay,
the
so
growth rate of real median wages is down, dude. Listen, you could whine, cope, moan, and complain. One moment, Cam, you're interrupting me. Now I'm going to mute you. I haven't muted you until now, Cam. I've just asked you to stop interrupting me. So the growth rate in real median wages is down. That's the claim that I've made. That's the claim that I'll continue to make because that's the claim that is true. Okay? And I want every single person watching this live to remember that this man, Cam Higbee, is completely pivoting away from the question that I asked him the moment he joined the live, how can you still support Trump after the Epstein fiasco, by talking about some small semantical disputes of the correct language to use to denote the factual claim that the growth rate in real median wages is down. He completely wrote off Donald Trump lying about his relationship with Epstein as conspiratorial nonsense, to rather talk about a semantical dispute indexed to the claim is the growth rate of real median wages up or down.
Yeah,
now,
so Cam, anything in the
I would
Epstein
really
files,
appreciate
that proves Trump did something criminal.
Okay.
Anything.
Yeah. So once again,
anything that proves he had sex with children or like criminally assaulted somebody. Go ahead. One thing, just one.
Okay, so I just want to assure that the basis that is underpinning this claim is that if you knew Donald Trump had engaged in sexual violence, you would not support him as president.
No, I'm asking you if there's anything in the Epstein files because you brought it up. That
I just want to make sure. I want to make sure. I want to make sure that like we could agree on a foundation in which would underlay.
You're just going to try to pivot to
claim.
Eugene Carroll. I already
No.
know you're going to.
I won't mention. I won't mention Eugene Carroll. You got it. I won't mention Eugene Carroll. Is a basis that underlies his claim that if Donald Trump was guilty, okay, of sexual violence, like you knew that he did it, that you'd stop supporting him as president.
Yeah, if there's any solid, concrete evidence outside of an accusation.
Perfect.
Material evidence.
Okay, awesome.
Evidence.
Cam, I might be able to change your mind. This is huge. Are you live streaming?
I am.
Perfect, because I want this recorded. Guys, folks, today we might be able to change Cam Higbee's mind. So first, let's go through the Epstein files. So when we're looking at the Epstein files, there's a handful of things that we've learned. A lot of these things aren't going to be relevant towards him, like engaging in sex with minors. They're more so going to be relevant to his lies about the nature of his relationship with Epstein, so on and so forth. Some of the things that Epstein has seemingly said about him, like the seemingly letter that he sent to Larry Nassar, or the birthday letter in 2003. If we want to talk specifically about allegations, we have a very credible allegation that came from a woman that later sued the Epstein estate and won millions because they determined her to be a rape victim of Epstein's. But of course, from my perspective, that's something I'd believe because it's a credible accusation being made by somebody that we know is raped by Epstein, also against Trump. From your perspective, you're not going to treat that as truth because you've been indoctrinated to completely disregard and disrespect the accounts of victims, even the reliable accounts of victims. So if I'm trying to demonstrate to you that Donald Trump has engaged in sexual violence to a degree in which I think you'd accept, which would be beyond any accusation, even if reliable or credible, I'm going to be pointing you towards the Howard Stern clip from 2005 when Donald Trump just straight up admits to sexual violence. He admits to sexual exploitation, and he admits to barging into the dressing rooms of
really? He does? He admits to barging into dressing rooms, Dean?
Yes.
Oh, can you play the clip for me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I can't wait to hear this clip. This is going to be really fun. I've been wanting to get you to bring this up in a conversation with me, actually. Play it into my hands.
Is Parker coming back?
I'm excited. Oh, you need Parker to back you up?
No, I'm just curious because he said that he'd be coming back on a second account, so I was just curious, Cam.
As the owner of the pageant, it's your obligation to do that.
So you have done that. Now,
I'll tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else, and no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that
like
everything is good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible-looking women, and so I sort of get away with things like that.
It's also worth giving out that on top of Donald Trump's admission of guilt here, where he says that he'd go into the dressing rooms, there'd be naked people inside, they looked great, he'd get away with it, sexual exploitation. We also have the testimony of many victims. Tasha Dixon.
Hey, Dean, question for you. Did he ever say dressing rooms in that clip?
He described dressing rooms in that clip.
Oh, really? He said backstage.
He said he'd go through the backstage into a place where men weren't allowed.
No, he didn't. He said he went backstage where people were getting dressed.
Wait, 1 second. You dispute that he said that he went into a place backstage where men weren't allowed, where women were naked and changing?
He didn't say where men weren't allowed. Did he say men weren't allowed?
Yeah, where men weren't anywhere. That means that men weren't allowed.
No, he didn't say that. He said that people, he's allowed to go backstage because of the owner of the pageant.
Okay.
Because most people aren't allowed backstage at a pageant.
Did he say that no men
if
were
they don't
around?
work for the pageant.
Did he say no? Did he explicitly say no men were around?
I don't know if he said that, but
yes, he did.
Definitely didn't say dressing.
Exactly what he said.
Okay, so I wasn't sure if he said that.
Listen, I'll give you my reduction.
Definitely didn't say dressing rooms. That's a lie.
I'll give you my reduction.
Admit you lied right now.
I did not lie.
Okay, you said that he said he went into dressing rooms.
I said that he went into dressing rooms and sexually exploited naked girls, and then he admitted to it.
That he admitted he went into dressing rooms.
Yes, he admitted to going into dressing rooms.
Never said that. No, he didn't. He never said he went into dressing rooms. He said he went backstage.
Okay. The reason why I say that Donald Trump admitted to going into dressing rooms is because what he describes in the clip is a dressing room. He says that he went backstage, A, into a place where men were not anywhere, B, into a place where he had abused his special authority as the owner of the pageant to enter into that space under the guise of doing an inspection.
This sounds like conjecture, speculation.
Okay,
Dean,
so Cam, if you're going to interrupt me, I'm clearly not going to be able to give you my cohesive argument insofar as why he literally described straight up that he went into dressing rooms. You can't just cut me off midway through and argue that it sounds like speculation. No, this is not speculation, because speculation would be coming to conclusions without reasonable justification to underpin the conclusions. That's what we use the phrase speculation to denote. When in culminating and building my conclusion that Donald Trump walked into dressing rooms, not only am I using reasonable evidence to justify that conclusion, but this is reasonable evidence that is obviously apparent to anybody with more than 3 brain cells. So I'm now going to give you that reasonable justification for the claim that he went into dressing rooms, and you're going to sit like a good boy and listen. Unless you want to continue to interrupt me, in that case, I'd be pretty annoyed. But I bet we could agree, we're both adults, we want to have a productive dialogue here, which would necessitate that we listen to one another.
Go ahead.
So once again,
you say whatever you want to say, and then I'm going to have a line of questioning for you afterwards.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll just get a concession afterwards, because this is common sense, man. It's super duper easy. So the claim that you want me to justify is that he went into dressing rooms. So first and foremost, the contestants at the beauty pageants would get dressed in dressing rooms. Why do we know this? Because that's what the contestants said, and that's what contestants would do at Miss Teen USA, Miss USA. But more so on top of that, we don't even need to look towards what the contestants said and what would happen at the beauty pageants to tell us where they would get dressed in order to prove that he would go into a dressing room. We have to listen to what Donald Trump admitted to. There are 4 things Donald Trump said in this clip in which demonstrate he would go into the dressing rooms. The first thing that he said in this clip that would prove that he went into the dressing rooms is the fact that he'd say the space that he went into are spaces where men were not around. There are no men at all. Okay, so now it seems like we have some reason to believe that this would be a woman's dressing room, because it seems like this is a space for women and women only. Let's see if we can find more reason. Yes, we can. He also said that he has to abuse his special privilege as the owner of the pageant to go into this space where no men are anywhere in order to get into the space under the guise of doing an inspection. If it was just a general backstage area, he wouldn't have to abuse any special privilege under the guise of doing an inspection. He would just be able to walk in and out because it's just a general backstage area. The 4th reason why I believe that this was a woman's dressing room is, of course, because he describes the women to be naked with no clothes on, and he describes the women to be getting dressed. And the 5th reason why I believe that this was a woman's dressing room is because at the end of the clip, he says, "So I would get away with that." What is he getting away with if it's just a general backstage area where he's allowed? This further represents that the claim that no men were anywhere, therefore no men weren't allowed, is true. The second reason suggests that while they were getting naked and they're getting dressed, the third reason, once again, it's a women's only area, he wasn't allowed in there. That's why it's a women's dressing room. And these reasons aren't even mentioning the testimony of the victims, like Tasha Dixon, who said that he'd barge into the dressing rooms and look at her while she's naked. Mariah Bellotto, who said, yeah, he'd just walk in on us while we were changing and we're all naked. The three other unnamed teens from Miss Teen USA 1997, or Miss Vermont, Miss Massachusetts, and many of the women from the other years. Or even like the pro-Trump contestants, like Victoria Hughes, who said, oh, well, he just walked in when we were dressed, when we had clothes on. We were completely dressed. Okay, well, she's still saying that he walked into the dressing room. So in consideration of all of these points and the testimony from the victims and the women who claim there were no victims, like Victoria Hughes, it seems to be the case that he clearly was walking into women's dressing rooms.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So I have a line of questioning I'd like to pose to you. Do people ever get dressed to any degree backstage at all, ever?
Outside of dressing rooms?
Backstage, yeah.
Outside of dressing rooms, backstage? I mean, I wouldn't know because I've never attended a beauty pageant,
okay,
but
right.
I would assume like putting on like, I don't know, like wigs if they're wearing them, jackets if they're wearing them, like, you know, like small makeup and costume fixes.
Okay, so it's possible. It's possible that people are getting dressed in the general backstage.
People typically get naked in the backstage.
Parker, pipe down. This is me and Dean.
Well, I want to point out here, Cam, that what I'm saying is I could reasonably see people like doing small makeup and costume changes that wouldn't expose their body, but I don't think that we could reasonably see people like literally getting naked backstage. You know, I don't think that would have been allowed.
Is it possible that they were in their bra and underwear backstage? You think that's possible at all?
I don't think that there'd be a high enough level of possibility there to demonstrate it to be relevant to this discussion.
That's not naked. That's not no clothes.
I'm asking you if it's possible.
Is bra and underwear clothing?
Parker, pipe down. I'm asking you if it's possible.
Is bra and underwear clothing?
They are a small amount of clothing.
Okay, so thank you for the concession.
I'm asking Dean if it's possible, Parker.
Cam, when he says no clothes on, does that mean that there's minimal clothing on?
Parker, I'm asking you to pipe down. It's me and Dean.
I'm
Is
sorry
it possible?
that you don't know how to respond to that one, but Dean's going to ask the same question, buddy.
No, it's irrelevant because I could perfectly well see somebody referring to bra and underwear as naked. Is it possible that people were in their
Cam,
bra
but that's
and underwear
ridiculous.
backstage? Okay, that you can say that's ridiculous. It's fine. Is it possible that people were in their bra and underwear backstage? Dean, go ahead.
Like logically possible?
Yeah, is it possible? Like, is there a chance it happened?
It's logically possible that people were in bra and panties
awesome. That's
backstage.
all I needed to know, Dean.
But in consideration of this logical possibility, because we have an insurmountable amount of evidence to demonstrate that that's not the case in the slightest.
Yep.
Cam,
that's all I needed to know, Dean.
That's not all you need to know.
I don't need to know anything else.
I understand that you want to ignore nuance in the subject because this is a place that you
I don't want to. I have a line of questioning. I sat back and was quiet while you were talking. So now I have a line of questioning for you that I'd like you to not
we've demonstrated that it is okay. I just want to clarify what we've demonstrated. We've demonstrated that it's logically possible that they were in their bra and panties backstage
everybody who's
in a
watching
public
knows
space.
that, Dean.
In the
Everyone's
same
tracking.
way,
Everyone
it's
knows.
logically
You're just
possible
obfuscating.
that unicorns exist. So we've demonstrated that unicorns exist. What comes
Everyone
next?
knows this, Dean. You're just trying to distract the conversation.
Okay,
You have demonstrated.
We've demonstrated that unicorns are logically possible to exist. What happens next?
Is it my turn to talk yet, or are you just going to keep talking so that I can't talk?
Mike, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we've demonstrated that it's possible that people were getting dressed backstage. Now, I'm just going to need a simple yes or no answer here, please. No,
that's
no
not what we
obfuscating.
agreed to.
Is it possible at all that he's not talking about a dressing room in this clip? Is it at all possible?
It's logically possible in the same sense that unicorns can exist.
Awesome. Can anyone just walk backstage at a beauty pageant? That's my next question.
No.
Oh, really? Nobody can. Okay. So let's hone in on your two primary points here. Is that if Trump wasn't the owner, if he wasn't abusing his ownership powers, he would be able to just walk on backstage freely, which isn't true because you can't just walk backstage. Not just anybody can walk backstage. The owner can walk backstage, and that would be a perk and a privilege that the owner would have to walk backstage in the general area. No, I'm not done yet. You also said that there's a few people who accused Trump of having walked into the dressing room on them. There's 5 people. There's 11 people who say that it never happened. 11 girls who were part of the pageant that say it never happened. So you can say, well, 5 people say it happened, and then 11 say it didn't happen. It's just those 11 versus those 5. So it's not going to be a strong point either. The fact of the matter is that you lied and said he went into a dressing room and said he went into a dressing room, which he didn't. He said he went backstage, which is completely different. It's perfectly logically possible that people were getting dressed backstage. You admit to this. It's perfectly logically possible that he wasn't talking about a dressing room. You admit to this. So what you're doing is operating off of conjecture. You're guessing. You're filling in blanks based on evidence that isn't present. It doesn't exist. Go ahead.
Okay. Is it logically possible that Donald Trump is secretly a Democrat who just wants to destroy the GOP from within?
Sure, it's logically possible.
Do you think that Donald Trump is secretly a Democrat that wants to destroy the GOP from within?
Do you have any evidence that that's what he's doing?
I'm asking you a yes or no question, Cam.
No, I don't, because there's no available evidence that points to the idea that he did.
Given your line of argumentation, that is baseless conjecture and speculatory due to the fact that it is technically logically possible that he is secretly a Democrat who wants to destroy the GOP from within. The point that I'm trying to demonstrate here is that I cannot believe that you would choose such a white belt line of argumentation in an attempt to argue that he never barged into the dressing rooms of beauty pageant contestants at the beauty pageants that he owned. You asked me, and this was the crux of the argument, is it logically possible that this was not a dressing room? And I answered yes, and now you're using that claim to demonstrate that apparently it is conjecturous and speculatory for me to attempt to prove that it wasn't just a general backstage area, but rather a dressing room. So
well,
that's not how logic works. One moment, Cam. I'm almost done. It's logically possible that we're all brains in a vat. It's logically possible that there's 5 gods. It's logically possible that that unicorns exist, and it's logically possible that Donald Trump is secretly a Democrat who wants to destroy the GOP from within. Merely demonstrating the logical possibility of an occurrence does absolutely nothing in demonstrating that the scenario in which you described to be true, that it was just a general backstage area, is actually true. If we want to argue that it was not a dressing room, but rather a backstage area, then you would have to demonstrate that it was a backstage area not predicated on logical possibility, but rather predicated on a preponderance of evidence. But the preponderance of evidence, not just to a 51% degree, but to a goddamn 99.9% degree, suggests that it was a woman's only dressing room. And I will repeat that evidence now because you didn't really respond to it. And there's another thing that you did say that I want to respond to. You said, well, he of course would have to abuse the fact that he's the owner to go into the backstage area. And that's why he said that in the clip, because I'm the owner, I could do it. Well, that isn't what he said that in the clip. In the clip, he said, because I'm the owner, I could go into this space under the guise of doing an inspection.
Yeah.
Would the owner, in order to get backstage, have to enter into the backstage area under the guise of doing an inspection? Or could the owner just go into the backstage area for any reason or no reason at all, not necessitating the guise of doing an inspection?
Well, what else would he be doing backstage? Probably inspecting to make sure everybody's doing a good job.
Answer my question.
I just did.
No, you didn't. I will repeat the question because you weren't tracking. Would the owner have to go into a general backstage area necessarily under the guise of doing an inspection? Or could the owner just go into a general backstage area for any reason or no reason at all? An owner of a beauty pageant could go into a general backstage area to pick his nose or check his phone.
You could say the same thing about the dressing room. It's irrelevant to the argument. Here's what you're doing.
You cannot say the same thing about the dressing rooms.
Pause.
I disagree. You cannot say the same thing about the dressing rooms. And the reasons why you're calling this an irrelevant argument is because you know that it defeats your view. The fact that Donald Trump said that not only was he allowed to do this because he's the owner, but in doing this had to do so under the specific guise of an inspection in order to quote unquote get away with it is what proves he knows he was doing something wrong, and is what further proves that it was a space for women and women only, where they were getting dressed and ready, a woman's dressing room, on top of the fact that he said that there was no men around, on top of the fact that that's what the women say, even the women that said he never perfed on them or they're naked like Victoria Hughes, on top of the fact that he said they were getting naked and changing. And the only evidence that you have that it wasn't a woman's dressing room, even though that's what the preponderance of evidence proves, is the fact that it's technically logically possible that it was in a backstage area, the same way it's technically logically possible, once again, that unicorns exist. We have 5 gods. You're a brain in the vat, or Donald Trump is secretly a Democrat who's trying to destroy the GOP.
Yeah, are you done yet? Do I get to talk
dude. Oh, I'm done,
great.
Cam. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, okay. Awesome. Yeah, so with your analogy that you posed me, you said, do you think that Trump is a secret Democrat trying to take over the GOP? I said, is it logically possible that's the case? And I said, yes, it's logically possible. You said, now prove that he's not. You're asking me to prove a negative. The difference between me and you is that you're trying to prove a positive. You're making the case that Trump went into the dressing rooms, passing it off as fact, But what you're really doing is you're taking small pieces of what Trump said, his testimony, and then filling in the gaps with your own thoughts and feelings and saying that it proves that it was a dressing room that he was talking about. He didn't say dressing room. He said backstage. You've admitted that it's logically possible that it wasn't backstage, and therefore you don't have any evidence that proves it was a dressing room. You don't have any material evidence at all that proves
Oh my God, blunder!
Hey,
Go ahead. I'll unplug
grow
my mic.
up? Can you grow up? Yeah, grow up. Yeah, control yourself. You don't have any material evidence whatsoever that proves he went into a dressing room. You have 5 young ladies or women, whatever, who say that he went into the dressing room. You have 11 of them that say he never stepped foot in the dressing room. Okay, so it's their word again. The only 2 pieces of evidence you have.
11
The
people
other
said
one is
they
that
weren't
your
murdered
feelings
by Jeffrey
inform
Dahmer.
you. The other one is that
I don't
your
even believe
feelings
him,
inform you. Are you guys gonna like just whisper like are we little
Yeah,
girls?
go ahead.
Okay. You guys are intentionally like trying to talk over me so that the argument doesn't come across.
Go ahead.
Because you
My
can't
bad.
win. You
Bro,
know
my
you've
fault.
dug yourself into a hole.
Bro, hands up, my bad. Go ahead.
Spoke once, dude. Why are
What?
you crying?
I'm not crying.
You just did.
You guys can't be quiet when I'm talking.
I said one thing one time.
Yeah,
You're
well,
gonna-
try not talking when other people are talking. I don't know.
Yeah, I did that. You've interrupted me more than that. How about you stop crying?
Because it's a conversation between me and Dean.
And you're literally crying on his stream. It's embarrassing, bro.
Okay. Is that what this boils down to? Is you dig yourself into a hole and
Can
then
you just like make your point instead of whining?
Yeah. The point is that you are just taking small pieces of what you call evidence and then filling in the gaps with your own thoughts and feelings, not based on anything. The idea that he had to have been going into a dressing room because he said that he was inspecting because he's an owner. Like this, could it be logically possible that he's inspecting the backstage area? Is that possible? Yes. Like you're just filling in the gaps and saying you proved it.
Okay, I have 4 things written down that I need to interrogate your argument on. Is that okay, Cam?
Sure. Yeah.
So the first thing that I have written down that I want to interrogate your argument on is a quote that you said. You said, and I quote, "It's technically logically possible, therefore you have no evidence for your claim." So Cam, can we agree?
What? When did I say that? What in reference to what?
Less than 30 seconds ago. That's what I laughed at. When I laughed, I went, ha ha ha. Then that's what I was laughing at.
Whatever.
You said it's
whatever.
technically logical possible. It's technically logically possible. Therefore, you have no evidence for your claim. You're telling me I can't believe what I believe in because the affirmation of the rejection of my claim is technically logically possible. So, did you know that it's actually okay to believe things without logical certainty?
Right, but you don't have sound evidence.
Thank
But
you.
there's a difference, though. So
Thank
you're not
you.
saying I believe this. You're saying
Thank
it's
you.
proven. That's
Thank
the
you.
difference.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're
It's
saying
okay to
it's
say
proven.
things that are proven without logical certainty. Did you know that?
Not without material evidence. Like if
Wait,
you
no,
can't
that's not.
prove-
Stop
if
misrepresenting.
you can't
Can you
that
prove
something
things
happened,
without
you can't
logical
s-
certainty? Yes or no?
No.
Oh my God! Can you prove that I exist?
No. We're not getting into it like a
Answer the
fucking-
question.
we're not-
Can you prove that I
No,
exist? Yes or no?
Yes, I can look at you and observe you with my eyeballs. You exist.
Oh wait, is it logically possible that the sensory input from your eyeballs is misleading you?
Yeah, they're They're
Okay, so therefore you
manufacturing
can't
a
prove
beam
to me
with
that
their in front of
I
my
exist,
eyes.
right? And wait, is it logically possible that I'm actually AI?
But
just
I'm
pixels generated by
logically
AI
certain.
on your phone screen?
I can be logically certain that you exist when I see
How
you
can you?
outside of Amfest and you're 4 feet tall and you're like begging people to have conversations. I'm
Sorry,
logically
no,
certain that
you saw
exist
me. You
because I
didn't
saw
look in a mirror. Cam, you weren't looking in a mirror. You saw me. So 4 feet tall, whatever. Now, okay. Now, once again, even when you saw me in person, is it technically logically possible that that was just an hallucination, a dream?
No.
Wait, it's not logically possible that that was an hallucination? What is logical possibility?
Logical possibility is that
Yes.
why don't I define logical certainty? Is like
He has to demonstrate the
I'm certain on a logical, or I'm sure on a logical basis. Of
No, white
something.
belt. That's not what these terms mean. Okay, that's why it's really important for us to
Okay, you
understand what these
define
terms
it. Define
mean
it. Define it.
before we start
Define it.
using them. So
You're
if something
trying
is
so hard to get
so
away from
if-
the actual topic.
Well, I like I said, I have 4 different points of refutation. This is the first one. I just want you to be able to concede on all 4. So logical possibility is when something is possible in the sense that it's not contradictory. So something is logically impossible if it violates the laws of logic, and something is logically possible, okay, if it does not violate the laws of logic. Do you understand what logical possibility is? Or would you like me to go through what the laws of logic are?
Sure. So
Okay. So in the classical sense, we have three classical laws of logic: the law of non-contradiction, the law of the excluded middle, and then we have what is the third one, Parker?
Law of identity, law of
Is this what we're doing to get away from the conversation
and law
about Trump
and law of
dressing
identity?
rooms, really?
Okay, so if something doesn't violate either of these three rules, the law of the excluded middle, law of contradiction, or law of identity, then it is logically possible. Okay, but just because logically is possible gives us no reason at all to believe that something is true or that something actually exists or actually happened. You know, like the claim
Nobody
that like
cares.
when you ran
Like-
into me at AM Fest, okay, like you are logically certain that happened. Well, that can't possibly be true because it's technically logically possible that you didn't actually see me, because the notion that you were hallucinating when you saw me doesn't violate any of the three classical laws of logic. Okay, right?
Is this,
And this is a very
what you have to
memory
do to
into
obfuscate
his
away
brain.
from the conversation about Trump in the
Cam,
dressing rooms?
see,
You
the
know
thing
you
is-
can't prove it.
Ca-
You
Cam,
claim that you can
Cam,
prove it. You
like-
claim that
like
you can prove it. You
30% of your argument, okay, so far has hinged on you using terms like logical possibility. So clearly, it's
you
really
brought
important
up
for us to
logical
go through.
possibility. Maybe
No,
I did,
you
actually.
you did.
I did.
Okay, 30% of your argument so far has hinged on phrases like logical possibility. So it's
Well,
really important for
I
us
asked
to
if it was
loosely understand.
possible. You asked if it was logically possible.
Well, yeah, I
So you
asked
actually
you a
did bring
clarifying
logical
question.
possibility.
When you use the
Yeah,
word
sure.
possible, do you mean logically possible? And you said yes.
Sure.
Okay, so
this
because
is what you have to
30%.
do. What you have to do to get away from, to weasel your way away from the conversation
Cam,
about Trump in
this
the
isn't
dressing room
weaseling away from any conversation. Like I
well,
said,
you might have
30%.
actually not seen
Cam,
it, Amfest. It
Cam,
might have been a
Cam,
hallucination.
my point is that when you use phrases like
You are
logical possibility,
such a little weasel.
Cam, if you stop interrupting me because you're upset that you're getting fucking cooked, we'll get through this argument faster. Like I said for the last time, it's important for us to understand what logical possibility even is and what logical certainty even is, okay? Because 30% of your argument has hinged on logical possibility and this notion of logical certainty. Like, for instance, just be good faith. Have you mentioned the phrase logical possibility more or less than 10 times since you joined the live?
I'm unaware. I probably used it more after you mentioned it. You're the one who brought
Exactly,
it up, not me, to
exactly,
be clear. I asked if
exactly.
it was possible.
So, yes, you asked me if it was possible, then I clarified,
Yep.
Cam, do you mean logical possibility? And you said yes. So,
Right.
I'm not running away from anything. This is a phrase that you've used upwards of 10 times since you joined in the furtherance of your argument that Donald Trump never sexually exploited anybody. And once again, just let me finish without interruption here. Logical possibility is essentially meaningless in like 99% of conversations. Because if something is logically possible, all that means is that it doesn't violate the three classical laws of logic and could technically exist in some random fucking crazy ass universe, even if that technicality of existence would only be like 0.00001 like percent. Okay, so stop giving me this. Well, because it's technically logically possible that Donald Trump didn't do what he said he did, or it wasn't a dressing room,
tell me
it
this,
was
Dean.
just a general backstage
Do
area.
you have
that
any
therefore it
material
didn't happen,
evidence?
or therefore, like I don't have evidence that he did it.
Yeah,
and that's
Dean,
the question you
Dean,
should be
Dean,
asking.
go ahead.
That's
Dean,
the
do you
question
have
that
any
matters.
material
Dean, do you
evidence?
have any material evidence that it was dressing rooms?
Okay,
Yes,
yeah,
and I've
you're
already
telling
shared
me.
it with you. Yes.
Do I
the
get to
material
talk?
evidence?
Do I get to speak? Do I get to speak? Or is this
Hope-
just the Dean talks?
I
and doesn't-
definitely
cuts
will be
Cam off?
talking for longer segments at any given time when you interrupt me.
Okay. Dean, do you have any material evidence whatsoever that proves Trump was talking about dressing rooms and not the general backstage area or some other backstage area?
Yes, I've actually already shared it with you
Okay,
2 times.
great. I'm happy. Let's hear it again.
Okay, perfect. So the first data point of evidence that Donald Trump was talking about dressing rooms is he says the space that he went into was a space that he had to abuse not only his position of power as the owner of the pageant, but also had to enter into under the guise of doing an inspection. This claim wouldn't have to be true if it was just a general backstage area. He could just walk into the general backstage area for whatever reason or no reason at all, to pick his nose, to check his phone, whatever. He wouldn't need to enter into the space under the guise of doing an inspection. This indicates that it was a more private place than just a general backstage area. The second data point of evidence is that he said that there's no men around. Okay, no men are around in women's dressing rooms, but more notably than that, he mentioned the fact that there are no men around. This seems to indicate that it was a private space specifically for women, due to the fact that we already know it's a private space, due to the fact that he said he had to abuse his position of power under the guise of doing an inspection to go in. The third piece of data that we have to demonstrate that this was a dressing room is the fact that he said women were getting naked and were getting dressed. So we know it's a private area. We know he had to really abuse his position of power to get in. Okay, we know there's no men around. Okay, we know women are getting naked and getting dressed, which then leads us to the fifth data point, that at the end of the clip, he said he got away with it. The way that we use the phrase getting away with things is to denote doing something that is wrong and then not facing consequences for it. This contradicts that he was just walking into the general backstage area, because why would it be wrong for an owner to walk into the general backstage area, and only further cements that it was a private woman's dressing room, because this would explain why it's wrong. Men aren't allowed in there. And then the sixth and final data point of evidence would be, of course, what the women have said about him barging in, looking at them while they're naked, so on and so forth. Now, you haven't disputed my first 5 data points of evidence. You did try to dispute the 6th. You argued, well, Dean, there was 5 women who came out and said that this happened to them. There was 11 that said it never happened and he never walked into the dressing rooms. I don't believe you. I do not believe you when you're telling us that 11 women had said that it never happened at all. And I would actually like you at one point or another in this conversation to tell me who those 11 women are and exactly what they said.
Yeah, definitely. Let me start at the beginning though. We'll go back to, you claimed that it had to have been a dressing room because he claimed that he abused his position as the owner to go backstage.
It's more than that. Under the guise of doing an inspection.
Do I get to talk? Did I interrupt you at all?
I was just clarifying.
This is
it's
what
more than that.
You're not clarifying. You're doing it on purpose to throw the conversation.
Okay, go ahead. You're doing. That clarification is important. I just want to let that be known. But go ahead.
Do you think it's not important? Do you think that it's important, or do you think that it's possible that he felt he was abusing his position? If women were getting dressed in the general backstage area, do you think it's possible that he felt like he was kind of shifting around a little bit when he went backstage as the owner? Do you think that scenario is possible, that women are getting dressed backstage? One second. Women are getting dressed backstage, and Trump wants to go backstage, and so he kind of just walks back there and he's like, oh, I'm the owner. Women are getting dressed. Do you think that it's possible that if somebody wanted to do that, they might feel like they need a reason to actually say that they're back there? Do you think that's possible?
What?
Why are you pretending like you don't understand what I'm saying?
Wait, so I just want to clarify what you're saying, because you had to reword yourself 3 different times to figure.
Okay, I'll make it extremely clear. Just be quiet. Okay, so there are women at a beauty pageant. They are backstage and they are getting dressed in the general backstage area. Donald Trump would like to go backstage in the general backstage area while these women are getting dressed. Mm-hmm. Do you think that it's possible that in order to go back there, he might feel that he needs some sort of justification to do that?
No, because it's just a general backstage area.
You don't think that because women are getting dressed, that would cause him in his mind to feel that he needs a mental justification to go back there while women get dressed?
Well, then at that point, they just have their own dressing room, right?
Well, what if they weren't using the dressing room?
Well, then why were they using the backstage area?
I don't know. Maybe they wanted to.
Maybe they wanted. Wait, if they wanted to use the general backstage area, then no, he wouldn't feel uneasy going back there because he knows that that's what they want.
How do you know that?
Under the expectation that it's a general backstage area.
How do you know that?
Because you just posited that they wanted to use it.
Yeah, women were choosing to change in that area. Don't you think that if women are choosing to go get dressed in that area, that somebody who wants to go back there might feel they need some kind of mental justification to walk through that area? I think it's certainly reasonably possible that somebody who wanted to go in that area during that time would feel they need some kind of mental justification to do it.
Okay, so now you're positing yet another claim of possibility where you're arguing it's technically possible. Wait, Cam, I just want to clarify your argument. You're saying it's technically possible that they weren't in a dressing room, just in a general backstage area. Then it's technically possible, like Donald Trump felt the need to create some sense of justification in order to go back into the space. No, actually, I reject that. I don't think that it's possible that Donald Trump felt an urge to create some sense of justification to be back in that space due to the fact that he then went on to talk about how good they look without clothes on and that he'd get away with it. People like that will brag about getting away with looking at the naked bodies of women unconsensually, okay? They don't feel like they need any justification to do it whatsoever.
By that logic, he wouldn't say that he needs a justification to go in the changing room either.
Okay, and by that, well, exactly. I don't think that he did because they laughed it off on the Howard Stern show.
Right,
I don't
why are
even
you
think.
citing
I don't
his
even think that he was.
justification?
I don't even think that he was trying to relay something in which was true. I think he was just trying to make a fucking joke about how he needed to go back there to do an inspection, and then Howard
Right,
Stern is
I
like,
agree.
right, like a doctor, you know,
I
like that
completely
line
agree.
that I needed to do an inspection. That wasn't serious. Like he didn't actually legitimately need to convince himself that he needed to do an inspection because he just wanted to walk back there and look at the naked bodies of the contestants.
Right, I completely agree. But he needed to have an excuse in his head. By your
Wait,
logic,
so then you
that
accept.
people-
So then
I'm
you
not
accept that
done,
Donald
Dean.
Trump needed
Dean,
to
do
have
I
an
get to
excuse to
respond
go
to
look
you?
at the naked bodies of women.
Dean, hey Dean, do I get to respond to you? Or
Yeah,
do you,
sure,
do you
sure.
get
But
to
I
talk
just want to clarify that we are now agreeing
Hey, Dean,
that Donald
hey, Dean, is
Trump
it my
needed
turn
an
to talk?
excuse to unconsensually look at the naked bodies of women. Go ahead.
No. Okay. This is what you do. You just try to distract so hard. It's ridiculous. So by your logic...
Is it the
that
luscious
people-
hair? Is it the great smile?
By your logic, you say that people... Dude, you're a literal child. By your logic, you say that people who go on the Howard Stern show and publicly brag about going into women's spaces and whatever and watching
Wait, so
them
you
change-
admit it was a woman's space that he bragged about entering? Cam, you just sold!
quoting
You
you.
just sold! You just
you're
fucking
straw
sold, bro!
You're straw manning.
Holy shit!
I was quoting you.
Okay, you were quoting
was
me. Go ahead.
quoting you.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Right. Why are you trying so hard to distract from the conversation?
Because I
Like,
thought
you
that you
won't-
just sold, dude. Hello, you
won't,
said
you won't
bragging about going
engage
into women's
at all,
spaces.
dude. You want? How about this? How about we move over to Iran? You want to talk about politics? We're not going to get anywhere on this. You just distract.
I just closed like half of my windows. I just closed like half of my fucking
can
windows,
keep-
dude.
we can keep
Oh
talking
my
about this if
god.
you want.
Where did the
We can
YouTube
keep-
go? The
we can
YouTube's
keep
gone.
on,
By the
but
way,
it's not
Parker, if you're
going
watching,
anywhere.
you literally got another flag, my friend. Where did the YouTube go?
It's not going anywhere.
Okay,
We can keep talking about it if you
listen,
want.
Cam. I'm just gonna be honest, buddy. The reason why you're struggling on this argument is because once
not
again, your
struggling.
argument hinges. Oh, I didn't even know that I had this other tab open. The reason why you're struggling on this argument is because your argument hinges on the technical, logical possibility that they were not in a dressing room, even though that's what all the evidence indicates. And then the technical, logical possibility that Donald Trump needed to create some type of excuse, like doing an inspection, in order to allow himself to go into this general backstage area. And then it also hinges on the possibility that all these women were lying and about a billion other things. So, like, when once again, the preponderance of evidence is like, holy shit, you know, he says that he went into the space where no men were. He says that he got away with going into this space. He says that
Is
in
it
this space
possible
women
that
were
the
naked and
backstage
getting
area didn't
dressed.
have a lot of men?
Okay, wait, actually, listen, can you agree that when we are describing a space where no men are, that a man would get away with something by going in, okay, where women are naked and changing, that it is most reasonable to assume that that space is typically a private woman's dressing room?
No, I think that it's reasonable to assume that it's a possibility. It's not reasonable to assume that you've
Is that
proven it. which is
typically
you
what that
claim.
space is? Just answer my question. Is it typically what that space is?
It depends on
a space
the
where
context.
no men are. One moment. A space where there's no men anywhere, that men would be getting away with something if they were to go inside.
Yeah. This is all
Okay, and
conjecture.
where women are naked and changing. Is that
all of this
space
is conjecture.
typically? Well, just answer my question. I don't know why you're running. Is that space typically a private woman's dressing room?
It's possible that it was.
No,
but
not even
nobody-
possible. Typically.
You have 11 witnesses who say that it
You're not
didn't
answering.
happen.
Oh wait, let's talk about those 11 witnesses. Who are they and what do they say?
Yeah, definitely. Fine. 1 second. Just give me a second. I'll pull it up. Everything
God,
you're saying
this
is
makes
conjecture.
you look stupid. No, it's not conjecture, dude. Yes, spaces where men aren't allowed, men would get away with something bad by
Is it
going
possible
inside.
that there weren't a lot of men
Okay,
backstage in the
one
backstage
moment.
area of a women's beauty pageant?
One moment, please. Thank you. I appreciate it. A space where men aren't allowed, a space where men would get away with going inside, a space where women are getting naked, taking their clothes off to get dressed. Okay, that space typically is going to be a woman's dressing room.
It's possible that it's
right?
one,
No,
but
no,
there's
not possible.
evidence. You're saying
Right or
you
wrong?
proved it.
Typically, is that space going to be a
You
woman's
are
dressing room?
saying you
Cam, you're
proved
dodging.
it.
You're
You
absolutely
did not.
dodging. You're dodging, Cam. Is that space typically going
The
to be
burden
a
of
woman's
proof is
dressing
on
room?
you.
I'm
It could
asking
be,
you a
but you
question about
haven't
your view,
proven it.
Cam. He's
It
running
could
so
be.
hard. Is this space, not could be, is it typically a woman's dressing room? Answer the fucking question.
Dude, stop muting me. There's a
Answer the
chance
question,
that it
Cam.
could be.
No,
There's
that's,
a
I'm not
chance-
asking you if there's a chance that it could be. I'm asking you, is it typically this?
Yeah, these are characteristics that could be ascribed to a women's dressing
That's
room.
not why I'm not asking you if these are characteristics that could be described to a dressing room. I'm asking you.
burden of proof is on you.
I'm asking you a question. You are running. I'm going to repeat the question, Cam. A space where no men are, a space where men get away with something bad by walking inside, a space where women are naked and dressing. Is that space typically a woman's dressing room? Yes or no? Everybody with a brain knows that the answer to this question is a screaming
definitely
yes.
possible, but the burden of proof is on you.
I'm not
Dean,
asking you if it's technically possible.
Dean.
You're actually running.
Who is the burden of proof on here? Who is
Dude,
not?
you're okay. This is a question. So questions are actually not true or false, meaning that I don't have any burden of proof because I'm not communicating a proposition that could be
The
true or
burden of
false.
proof to prove it was a dressing room is on you.
Oh
And
my
you haven't
God.
proven it.
Listen,
You haven't met the burden.
I'm asking you a question, Cam. The question that I'm asking you has no burden of proof on anybody because questions can't be true or false. Propositions that can be true or false are the only items that would necessitate any burden of proof. So now that we understand I'm asking you something, that when it come with the responsibility of a burden of proof on anybody because it's a question that can't be true or false, I'm going to ask it to you again. I want to see what your response is. Okay, our spaces where men aren't anywhere, okay, men would be doing something bad by walking inside, something that they'd be getting away with, like Trump said, okay? Spaces where women are naked and changing, are those spaces typically woman-only dressing rooms?
It's definitely possible.
Okay.
But you haven't proven
He's
that
actually
it is.
dodging. He's
I'm not
actually dodging.
That's the answer to the question.
But I'm not asking you if it's possible. I'm asking you if it's typical. Listen, I'll explain.
Yeah, sure it's typical. You're describing what could possibly be a woman's dressing room.
No, we're not talking
it's
about
typical.
what
Those are
could
typical
possibly
traits for a
be a
woman's
woman's
dressing
dressing room. We're talking about
You're asking me if
what
it's typical.
is
Can I
a
answer the
woman's
question?
dressing room in more scenarios than
You're
is
trying
not
so
a woman's
hard to
dressing
weasel out
room.
of this. You're trying so
I'm
hard
not.
to
No,
weasel
you're
out of this.
trying so hard to weasel out of my
I already said
question.
yes.
On God. Okay, so you accept that a space.
Just ask him where all the evidence points towards. Like in the scenario, in terms of like if you were to establish like what happened in the scenario and where it was located, where would you establish that it was located? What is all the evidence pointing towards?
Okay, well, I mean, he actually just conceded that it would be a woman's dressing room, since he conceded that this place would typically be a woman's dressing room.
Typically, these are characteristics of a women's dressing room. But what does the word typically
Okay.
mean? Does it mean always?
So it means
No, we're
true in
not.
more
It
scenarios.
doesn't mean always, but you
Say all evidence indicates that. When you say evidence indicates something, you're saying
on
it
whom,
increases the
Parker?
probability of this being true,
you're
not that
discussing
it's
the
certainly
game.
the case.
Parker.
But
or
by the
Dean,
way, it does prove it.
Dean,
I just want to
Dean,
point that out.
Dean,
Yes,
Dean,
yes,
Dean.
yes, Cam. See, I'd actually argue that the burden of proof. So I'd actually argue that because these traits suggest a place that is like in 9 out of 10 scenarios a woman's dressing room, that the burden of proof would be on you in order to argue that it isn't. Okay?
No,
because we
you're
just
proving
agreed.
an affirmative claim. You
Wait,
are on the
but
positive, not me.
actually, I just did because you just accepted
prove a
that this
negative.
is typically a woman's dressing room. So due to
These
the
are
fact
typical
that the
traits of a woman's dressing
expectation
room.
or the typicality would be that this is a woman's dressing room, due to the fact that men are getting away with doing something bad by walking in, due to the fact that there's no men anywhere, due to the fact that there's naked women that are getting undressed and changing, the burden of proof would actually fall on you to
doesn't.
disprove that it was a woman's dressing room
You
by
are trying to
proving
make
that it was a general backstage area.
That it was a woman's dressing room. The
But we
burden of
just
proof is on
agreed.
you.
But we just
You're trying to shift the burden.
agreed that
It's not
that's what
working.
all the evidence indicates because
No,
this
we
is the
didn't agree
description
to
of a
that.
place that is typically a
No,
woman's
no,
dressing room.
No, we didn't agree to that. We
We
agreed.
did.
that
Because we
typically these are
disagree that this is
traits for
typically a woman's dressing room.
Dude,
By the way,
you-
thank you for your service. By the
do
way,
I
Cam,
get
I just want to point this out. Thank you for your service against MAGA. You push so many people away from the movement and so many people towards my side, and I'm so grateful for you. Because do you know what the average American hears when they hear this bullshit? Oh, Donald Trump was definitely not describing a dressing room, even though he was talking about a space where no men were. He was getting away with doing something wrong by walking in. Okay, they were getting naked in their dress. But dude, he wasn't describing a dressing room. It was just a general backstage area. Now, here's another question. Why did he say he was getting away with it at the end? What was he getting away with, Cam?
Looking at naked girls or half-naked girls, obviously.
Oh, so you accept that he was getting away with looking at half-naked women. Okay, do you agree that the only time we use the phrase getting away with something is to denote doing something bad and facing no consequence?
Something you'd feel guilty about, yeah.
Okay, so doing something bad.
Not everything you feel guilty about is bad.
Could you give me an example about something that I'd feel guilty about doing that's good?
I'll give you an example of something that I'd feel guilty about that's morally neutral. Like, for example, if I went downstairs and ate an entire bag of Cheetos, I would feel very guilty about it, but it doesn't mean it's bad. The logic does not follow that everything you feel guilty about must be inherently bad.
But the reason why you'd feel guilty about eating a bag of Cheetos would be more so would be out of the sense of like doing something that is going to be like damaging to like your future.
It would conflict with other values, just not moral values. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So
what values what values were being conflicted of Donald Trump's when he got away
I'm
with
not
looking
Donald
at the
Trump,
naked
so I
women?
can't tell you. I'm not Donald Trump, so I can't tell you.
Well, can we agree that since there's some confliction of values that are present via the fact that he said he got away with it, and the fact that he said there's no men anywhere, and the fact that he said in order to get into the space he had to abuse his special privilege, and the fact that there are naked women and changing indicates that it was a dressing room?
No.
You fucking idiot.
Indicates
Thank
that
you
it
so much
could
for
be a
pushing more
dressing
people
room, but you
away
haven't
from
proven
it.
it.
Oh my God. Okay, what about the fact that, a bunch of women came out and said that this happened to them in the dressing rooms? What about that?
Possible that there weren't a lot of men backstage, Dean?
Can you answer my
Do
question?
you think it's possible that...
Why aren't you answering my question? What about all the women that came out and said that they were dressing
respond.
rooms?
You haven't allowed me to respond.
Answer my
to
question.
anything
What
you've
about
said.
all the women that
You're
said they
just
were dressing
barraging me with
rooms?
questions.
Don't dodge. What about all of the women? Listen, on top of all the evidence that I've already given you of him feeling bad about going in there, saying he got away with it, saying that he has to abuse his special privilege as the owner of the pageant, there'd be naked women that were dressing, him having to abuse the fact that he was doing an inspection or whatever, and then the fact that we have all these women that said that it was the dressing room that he did this inside. Okay, what about that? What about all the women that said that he would walk into the dressing rooms?
Yeah. What about all of the women, the 15 women that were interviewed by BuzzFeed on this topic, and none of them said that Donald Trump ever went into their dressing rooms?
Okay, so what did they say?
They didn't say that he went into the dressing room.
So what did they say?
I don't know. Read the rest of the article. I can send you the article. I can send it to Parker right now. But
are you talking about the BuzzFeed article where they reached out to 25 different beauty pageant contestants and 15 didn't respond to the request for an interview? Are you talking about the 15 that didn't respond to the request for an interview?
No, I'm talking about the.
Okay, so then they gave the interview. So what did they say?
I don't know. I read the byline of the BuzzFeed article.
Okay, so then read the whole article.
You want me to read the whole article right here?
Yes,
on
I want to figure out what they said.
Of the 15 women who were interviewed, none accused Trump of saying anything sexually explicit or making physical contact in the dressing rooms.
Okay, so they didn't accuse him of saying anything sexually explicit or physically touching them.
1 second. Yeah. There's another batch of women.
While in the dressing rooms. Wait, while in the dressing rooms.
He now has that it was dressing rooms.
These 15 women said that he went into the dressing room, but didn't say anything sexually explicit or touch them.
That doesn't imply that he must have gone into the dressing room.
Well, that definitely implies that 15 women did not account for him not going in the dressing rooms like you argued, Cam.
Wait, saying of the 15 women who were interviewed, none accused Trump of saying anything sexually explicit or making physical contact in the dressing room.
Do you agree that that doesn't mean that they said that he never walked into the dressing room?
It doesn't say that they're saying he did walk into the dressing room.
Okay, but you use these 15 women as an account to argue. These 15 women said he didn't walk in. I could roll back the VOD right now.
Sure. They didn't mention that he did go into the dressing room.
Okay, then
but also
concede.
the burden of proof is again on
Wait,
you.
no. The burden of proof is on you. No, because I asked you about the multiple women that have all said Donald Trump went into the dressing rooms, and then you responded by saying this BuzzFeed article lists 15 women who said he never walked into the dressing rooms. Can you concede that you were wrong?
Yes.
So you're conceding that you're wrong, Cam, right?
Wait, no. If you read the rest of the article, of the women, 11 said they don't remember Trump going into the changing room at all. Some said it was possible that it happened, but they weren't in the room or they didn't notice. But most were dubious or dismissed the possibility out of hand.
Okay,
out of hand, very unlikely that he did it.
Okay. So we'll talk about that next. The first thing that I want you to do is concede, because at first you suggested that 15 women testified to the fact that he never went in.
Sure. 15 women said that they never noticed any sexually explicit comments or anything like that, and 11 said he never went in.
Perfect.
This is what I said.
No, actually, they never said that he never went in. They said that they don't remember him going in, and this is actually perfectly congruent and in alignment with a view. One moment. This is actually perfectly. This is actually perfectly congruent and in alignment with the proposition that he did walk into the dressing rooms, because we wouldn't expect him to barge into the dressing rooms of every woman at every year of Miss USA and every teen at every year of Miss Teen USA at every pageant at every time. maybe some of these women like weren't in the dressing room because they'd already gotten ready and then went off to the general backstage area. Maybe some of these women were kicked out of the contestant and then he walked into the beauty pageant contestant after they were kicked out. Maybe some of these women just weren't there that day. Maybe some of these women weren't at the pageant that he decided to barge into the dressing rooms on of that day because they weren't at Miss Teen USA, they're at Miss USA, or they weren't at Miss USA, they're at Miss Teen USA. But the fact that some of them do recount of stories of him walking into the dressing rooms, okay, and the fact that those that do not account the stories of him going into the general backstage area like you suggested, and the fact that he admitted to going somewhere where men weren't allowed, where he got away with going inside, he had to abuse his position of power to get in, and then he saw naked women, proves that it was a dressing room. There's not a single person from any pageant that has recounted the experience that this was just a general backstage area. They either don't remember it didn't happen to them, or they said it went into the dressing rooms. So because everybody who can recount the story that Donald Trump is describing to Howard Stern is saying it's happening in the dressing rooms, not a single soul recounted the story of it happening in a general backstage area. And on top of the first 5 data points I gave you that indicate it happened in the dressing rooms, okay, of him abusing his position of power to get in, men weren't anywhere, women were naked and changing, that proves it happened in the dressing rooms. There's simply no evidence to suggest that it happened anywhere else.
There's not enough evidence to suggest that it did, Dean. Again,
yes, there is.
You said I'm not, Dean. Do you know how to be quiet when other people speak? Did I interrupt you just now?
Just respond to the part that not a single woman testified to this happening in a general backstage area. Every woman that remembered it happening to them testified to it happening in the dressing rooms.
You're just repeating yourself. Your whole thing is just like filibustering.
Just respond to that.
You said that, I want to respond to everything you said. You said that none of them said that it happened in the general backstage area. It doesn't matter because none of them said it didn't happen in the general backstage area. What you do have is 11 women. I'm not done, Dean. You have 11 women saying that they don't remember this happening at all, and most of them being dubious and dismissing the possibility completely out of hand. Meaning, like, that definitely did not happen. They're saying with almost certainty that this thing did not happen. Most of the 11 women. Huh?
Okay, like who are they? Who specifically said that?
I don't think BuzzFeed cites the names of the women for obvious reasons.
Yeah, God.
Yeah, BuzzFeed doesn't cite the names of the women for obvious reasons. Do you contest the BuzzFeed article?
No. I actually accept it. Like I told you prior, I think that this works perfectly in congruence, in alignment with the fact that he did do it. Because like if we assume that he did barge into the dressing rooms and then look at them naked, we would expect some people to not have a story to tell because it didn't happen to them. Okay? But the part that I want you to respond to is because we know that he did this in either the dressing rooms or the backstage area, right?
We know that it happened in one of the two, yeah.
Yes. Okay. We know that it happened in one of the two. Okay. So now we need to look at where the evidence falls.
You haven't proven that it happened in one over the other.
Yes, I have.
No, you haven't.
The reason why we know it happened
to illustrate a possibility.
Cam, follow me here. So we just agreed that it happened in one of the two. He either looked at the half-naked women, the naked women, in the general backstage area, or he looked at the half-naked women, the naked women, in the dressing rooms. So out of the women that remember Donald Trump doing anything, did they say it happened in the general backstage area? Or did they all say that it happened in the dressing rooms?
None of them said that they didn't see him in the backstage area.
Answer my question. Did they say that it happened in the backstage area? Or did they say that it happened in the dressing rooms?
Yes, there are a handful of women that say it happened in the dressing rooms, but there's also a greater...
single woman?
Dean,
was there a single woman? This is a dialogue train. I'm almost done here. Was there a single woman who remembers this happening to them that accounted it occurred in a general backstage area?
There are a handful of women that say, yes, he went to the dressing room. There is a larger handful of women who dismiss the idea that he could have possibly gone into the dressing room completely out of hand.
Okay.
So that piece of evidence isn't going to work for you.
No,
actually, I don't
actually.
mean to cut you off. I just want to say I got to get going.
All right. You have a good one, Parker. Everyone. I appreciate you so much for coming up. So actually it does. It does, Cam. And here's the reason why. So the 11 women just simply said that they don't remember this happening to them. Because that's all they could say. That's not literally all they could say.
That's not what they say.
That's all they could say.
Most of them dismiss the idea out of hand. They don't say, no, I don't remember this happening. They say,
but what evidence would they have for that? The only evidence that they'd have for that is the fact that it didn't happen to them, right?
No, maybe they were in the dressing room. What do you mean happened to them?
There's not like a single woman who could have been in the dressing room 24/7 at all of the pageants. So there's no way that they could have enough evidence to know that it never happened, right?
You don't think that there could have been a person, one of these women couldn't have possibly been somebody who was in the pageant every time or in the dressing room every time?
Yes, yes.
Really? You think it's impossible?
Yes, because he ran more than one pageant for different age groups.
This
like holy fucking shit. He ran multiple pageants.
Yeah, the article is specifically about 1997. What year did the 1997 girls that you're talking about say it happened? What year? What year, Dean?
Yeah, you had Tasha Dixon, you had Miss Vermont from 2001, you had Miss Massachusetts. This happened through the 90s and the early 2000s.
Okay. You're still not meeting the burden of proof.
Yeah, dude, Cam, the only reason why you're saying I'm not meeting the burden of proof is because I have met the burden of proof and you're fucking cornered. Listen, Cam, at the end of the day, Donald Trump admitted to sexual exploitation. He admitted to looking at the naked bodies of women without their consent, okay? And on top of that, every woman who remembers that happening to them accounted for the fact that it occurred in a dressing room. And on top of that, he said that he was getting away with doing something wrong, wouldn't be happening if it was in a general backstage area, had to say that he had abused his position of privilege and power and under the guise of doing an inspection to go into this space at all. Wouldn't be true if it was a general backstage area. Said that there's no men anywhere. Wouldn't be true if it was a general backstage area because men did work on the production team. Okay, men did work on building out the pageants. Men did work as judges. Okay, so why would there be no men anywhere? Wouldn't it be true if it was a general backstage area? And because every woman who remembered this happening to them accounted for it occurring in the dressing room, and there is not a single woman or a single girl that you could find that has ever told the media that this only happened in a general backstage area, you are wrong. Like for example, I'll play you this now. This is
literally just assumptions.
Virginia.
All of these are assumptions.
No, it's not. It's not. No, nothing I said is an assumption. Nothing I said is nothing I said.
And also,
is an assumption.
Absence of evidence to the contrary does not make something true.
Okay, but I'm not proving this to be true via absence of evidence for the contrary. I'm proving this to be true through a deductive argument, reason from the things that Donald Trump said, reason from the things that the women said, and then be an inductive argument that would hinge on the fact that not a single woman accounted for it occurring in a general backstage area. They all either didn't remember, said it never happened, or said it happened in a dressing room, which is a perfectly valid and fine
You are saying it's a possibility.
Inductive
it is
argument.
Not proven or certain.
Yes, we are saying that this has been proven because of all the evidence that I just suggested. It is not conjecture. Conjecture and speculation are when you formulate conclusions without sufficient evidence. Okay, there's clearly enough sufficient evidence to believe that this occurred. The only little weasel here is you.
Right, you just keep muting me and talking over me. This whole argument has just been you jumping around, muting me.
Check this out. I want to play this to you. This is Virginia. This is Virginia Hughes. I want you to listen to what she said.
I don't care what she has to say. What I care about is you proving that this happened.
She first met Donald Trump. She says she was backstage in the dressing room when Trump came in to say hi.
I was in the very back of a very, very large dressing room.
Victoria Hughes was Miss New Mexico in the 1997 Miss Teen USA pageant. Hughes remembers getting dressed backstage just before the show when all of a sudden...
We have a visitor. They didn't tell us who it was and that we needed to make sure that we were dressed and that we were decent.
Little did she know that visitor was Donald Trump, who owned Miss Teen USA and 2 other pageants from 1996 until just last year.
And he said hello and he wished everyone good luck. And then he left.
Hughes told us via Skype she was dressed and saw the other girls around her, but she admits it was poor timing.
He definitely should have introduced himself at the end of one of our rehearsals instead of walking in not knowing if everyone is completely covered up or not.
2000.
So the reason why I played you this audio clip is because this is Virginia Hughes, who was a contestant at Miss Teen USA 1997, and her testimony is often cited by people on your end of the argument, because in that clip she says that the girls were given a heads up to get dressed before Donald Trump went into the dressing room. And more so the reason why I'm playing you this clip is because it indicates that my claim here is even more likely to be true, because we have like pro-Trump defending contestants that said, when this happened, they gave a heads up. When this happened, we were dressed. Okay. But yet they still said it happened in the dressing rooms. So the larger theme here that I'm trying to push across the line, one moment, the larger theme here that I'm trying to push across the line is even the girls that have come out in defense of Donald Trump, insane that he would not barge into the dressing rooms and look at us while we were naked. We were given a heads up. We got dressed. even they said that he still went into the dressing rooms. So in consideration of all of the women that said that they were taken advantage of, all of the girls that said that they were taken advantage of, barged in there while they were naked, in consideration of what Donald Trump said, okay, he got away with it, he had to abuse his special privilege, walked into a space where no men were, where they were naked and changing, had no clothes on, okay, and in consideration of the pro-Trump defending women who said yes, he would walk into the dressing rooms, keyword on the dressing rooms part, but he would give us a heads up and we had clothes on, we can prove that yes, he would go into the dressing rooms.
Okay, so did you prove anything to a higher degree than you had proved before? You already told me all of this testimony. You're still operating off of conjecture.
The reason why Victoria Hughes' testimony is especially relevant
I don't care
is because she's not a Trump hater. She's actually defending Trump in this clip.
That is irrelevant to me.
It's not irrelevant at all.
It is irrelevant to me. You can't tell
No,
me
the reason why it shouldn't be irrelevant to you at all is because she's literally defending Donald Trump in this clip, saying that he would go into the dressing rooms, okay, but we were all clothed.
Still operating off of conjecture. So what's your point?
It is not conjecture. Define conjecture.
Conjecture is operating in the absence of evidence.
Okay, but clearly I have evidence for this, considering the fact that he admitted to going into a space where men weren't, using his special privilege and power as the owner of the pageant, where women were naked and changing, that he got away with going in, and clearly, yes, the testimony of a woman who's actually defending him, okay, arguing that we were decent, we were close, he'd give us a heads up before he'd walk into the dressing rooms, would further serve as evidence for the claim that he did go into the dressing rooms. In consideration of all these facts, it's essentially irrefutably proven. There is no evidence to indicate that he went anywhere but the dressing rooms. There's no evidence to indicate that he was describing anything but a dressing room, and any attempt to argue that he was describing a general backstage area fails, either because he said that he had to abuse his position of power as the owner under the guise of doing an inspection, fails because he said that he felt like he was getting away with something, fails because he says that they were fully naked, no clothes, okay, fails because every single woman that has come out said it was a dressing room, even the Trump haters. There is absolutely no way to refute the claim in which I'm making, which is that Donald Trump went into the dressing rooms. That's the argument. It's over, Cam. You've lost, buddy.
Dean. Well, if you have to declare your victory, you probably didn't reach a victory. But again, just go back to the fact that you're taking small pieces of something that could point towards a conclusion and filling in the gaps of evidence with speculation.
No, these aren't small pieces that could point towards the conclusion. They are large, damning swaddles of evidence that prove a conclusion. They're not small things that could prove a conclusion. No, I'm not filling in a single gap. What's the gap? What's the gap? Tell me, what's the gap?
Yeah, the gap is, well, it's possible that the backstage room had people dressing. It's possible that there weren't a lot of men in the backstage room.
So the gap is logical possibility. So as long as logical possibility of the contrary exists, then there's a gap that could only be filled by speculation?
Or not?
No, okay, yes, you are. You are answering. Yes, you are. Yeah, go ahead.
This is all you do. This is like
how it's shit on Trump supporters like you? I know.
Speak over everybody.
Oh, somebody's getting emotional. I get it. It's okay, buddy. Calm down.
No, breathe. You're speaking over me because you know you can't win.
Oh, wait, but I thought that if you had to declare your victory,
you're afraid of what your viewers are going to hear me say next, so you just talk over me, you laugh obnoxiously loud, you mute me.
I gotta know what I'm afraid of. Go for it.
Okay, great. So you agreed that it's logically possible that all of this occurred in a backstage area. So you're citing all of the things that you already acknowledge are could have possibly happened in a backstage area and not in the dressing room, and saying because of all of these things that very well could have possibly happened in the backstage area, that it must be that this was in a dressing room. But it doesn't logically follow. You haven't proven. There's no additional damning piece of evidence, smoking gun, that proves that it happened in a dressing room and not in a backstage area.
Okay, so I just want to clarify what your argument is.
None of these things are
basically saying
to a dressing room.
that the gap that I'm filling in with speculation is the logical possibility that it's a general backstage area, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in other words, in order for me to not fill in that gap with speculation, but rather irrefutable evidence, is that I'd have to prove with evidence that it was not a general backstage area to a degree of logical certainty, right?
You have to prove that it was. No, you have to prove that it was a dressing room.
Okay, but proving that it was a dressing room will always leave a logical possibility that it wasn't.
Wait, say again?
Proving that it was a dressing room will always leave a logical possibility that it wasn't. So
not
therefore,
necessarily.
Yes, because keep in mind.
Okay, if you have camera footage of it, how does that leave a logical possibility that it wasn't?
Because it's logically possible that the camera footage was doctored. It was logically possible that the camera footage was AI. It's logically possible that any of these absurdities could be true. Because once again, logical possibility is just simply describing something that doesn't violate the 3 classical laws of logic.
You're not. How about this? I'll put it this way. You're not convincing me. How about that?
Okay.
Because we're
But
operating
then the
off of our
reason,
own personal opinions
the
right now.
reason
You
that I'm
have
not convincing you is because the proof in which I'm giving still yields some low level of logical possibility that it's not true, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't meet
Exactly,
a burden
Ken.
that is sufficient for me to believe that.
But the reason why it doesn't meet the burden that is sufficient to you is because it leaves some low level of logical possibility of the contrary being true.
No, I think that it's a pretty high.
Okay, so it's more than just a mere logical possibility.
It is. Well, yeah, I think so.
Okay, but earlier you argued that the gap that I'm filling in with speculation is any logical possibility. So now you're changing your position.
Oh my God.
Earlier I asked you what the gap was, and you said it was a logical possibility. Yes or no?
I was kind of reading chat when you asked me that question, but
Yes or no? Earlier when I asked you what the gap was in the argument, that's not convincing you. You said it was any logical possibility whatsoever.
I wasn't listening to you. That's fine.
Okay, so do you concede that like you could prove things while leaving a logical possibility of the contrary being true?
I explained my position to you right after that, and I said you just haven't met like the sufficient burden to me to prove that it did happen. And I think that's the case for a lot of people watching, particularly on my stream.
Well, I know, because you guys are a bunch of fucking brain dead MAGA chuds, dude. He literally said that he'd go into a space where women were naked. Okay, I want you to demonstrate that there's a reasonable possibility of women being naked backstage at Miss Teen USA and Miss USA in a general area.
You want me to prove that it's possible that women could have gotten changed?
That a reasonable possibility. I want you to prove a reasonable possibility of that. Yes.
Dude, this is so ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous at all. You said that I'm. Wait. Were they naked? No way.
They could have been wearing very little clothes. I think that it's very like linguistically possible.
Okay, demonstrate even a reasonable possibility of that.
You want me to answer you or not?
Listen, this was an organized.
Possible.
This was an organized event. This was an organized event with standard and common procedure. Okay, I want you to prove to me, because I actually reject that in this organized events with standard and common procedure, the women or girls would even strip down down to their bras and panties in a general backstage area. Well, actually, moments before he says that he would consider sleeping with a girl. So I think that both of those two words are not going to be used in reference to their literal strict definitions.
He said women. Yeah.
And a minute before in the clip, he says that they're sleeping, and he says that he would consider sleeping with the girls. So I don't think either of those two words are going to be used in reference to their literal and strict definitions. But the question that I'm asking you here is to demonstrate even a reasonable possibility, okay, that the women, we'll just use women because I don't want to open up a new can of beans. Then let me finish my question. What I'm asking you here is that there's a reasonable possibility that women would be stripping down to their bras and panties in a general backstage area at Miss USA while he owned it. Prove that there's a reasonable possibility.
I cannot do this with you, dude. Like every time I start trying to answer your questions, you just start talking over me or you mute me so that I continue talking and don't realize that I'm muted.
He's whining because he can't answer the question.
No, because every time I start to answer the question, you mute me, and then I continue speaking, and I don't realize that I'm muted.
Okay, here's the question. I'm going to unplug my mic so you can answer it. Okay?
Dude, you do this every time you start talking.
You're arguing that the data in which I've given you hasn't convinced you to a sufficient degree that this occurred in dressing rooms. So this would mean that there is a reasonable possibility that the women were either A, getting naked, or B, stripping down to their bras and panties in a general backstage area. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, I think that's
possible. Prove that there's a reasonable possibility of them stripping down to their bras and panties in a general backstage area. Yes.
Hey, Dean, prove that there's a reasonable possibility that the grass is green.
Okay, that would be by going outside and taking a picture of it.
Oh, what if the camera's messed up, Dean?
That'd be an unreasonable possibility that the camera's messed up. Therefore, it would be a reasonable possibility that the grass is actually green. Get fucked.
Yeah, this is so ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous at all. You just tried to respond to me with like the stupidest argument I've ever heard that I shot down in less than 3 seconds, leaving you with a statement. Oh, that's so ridiculous. No, you lost the debate, bro.
Dude, I did not, because you never met the
well, then answer the question. Ridiculous. Prove to me that there's a reasonable possibility that the women would be stripping down to either A, getting naked, or B, just their bras and panties in the general backstage area at Miss USA.
I think that it is possible
that
women were in their bras and panties backstage. I think
remember,
that's perfectly possible.
You don't have to demonstrate that it was merely possible. You have to demonstrate that it was reasonably possible.
Everybody watching knows that's reasonably possible. How do you want me to? How would you go about proving that it's reasonably possible that? I don't know, man. it's so difficult to prove that anything that you didn't personally witness
Yes.
with your own eyes is reasonably possible.
No,
like
it's actually
almost
not
impossible.
at all. It's actually
unless
not.
it's done-
Did
unless
I
it's done-
witness you eating in the last week with my own eyes?
No.
Could I
You can
prove that
deduct
it's
that I
reasonably
ate because my
possible
body
that
needs
you
food
ate in the
supply.
last week do you think that I could prove that it's reasonably possible that you ate food in the last week?
Sure.
Okay, so we actually can prove things to be reasonably possible that we don't see with our own eyes.
Can you prove that it's reasonably possible that I played Xbox in the last week?
Can I prove that it's reasonably possible that you played Xbox in the last week? No, I couldn't.
Yeah.
So therefore, I couldn't claim that you played Xbox in the last week.
But you don't think it's reasonably possible that I could have played Xbox in the last week?
That you could have played it? What does that mean? Reasonably possible that it's possible? That's incoherent.
Is it reasonably possible?
Wait, no, Cam, we got to evaluate what you just said. You just said, is it reasonably possible that you could have played Xbox in the last week? That term could have is just synonymous to the word possible. So did you just ask me? Did you just ask me? Did you just ask me if I could prove that it's reasonably possible that it's possible you played Xbox in the last week?
Yeah, distract from the debate because of a misspeak.
Okay, so what did you mean to say? So what did you mean to say?
Is it reasonably possible that I played Xbox in the last week?
Is it reasonably possible that you played Xbox in the last week?
Is it reasonably possible?
Yeah, I don't know enough about you in order to argue that it would be, so I can't.
Right, so it's so ridiculous. It's obviously reasonably possible that I played Xbox in the last week.
Okay, so maybe if I watched your streams, if you talked about video games, I would argue that it's reasonably possible that that occurred. If I knew that you owned an Xbox, I'd argue that it's reasonably possible that that occurred. You know, but like in a very similar sense, if you could like point me towards like testimony of the people that were at the pageant that said that they would sometimes get changed in the general backstage area, then we could agree that it'd be reasonably possible that that would occur. You know, or people saying that this happened in the general backstage area, that it'd be reasonably possible that it occurred. Looking at the code of conduct, like within the contracts that are agreed to by Miss USA, where it says like you can get changed in the dressing rooms or the general backstage area, then we could agree that it's reasonably possible that it occurred. But due to the fact, but due to the fact that we have no evidence, no reason in the slightest to believe that it is reasonably possible, just reasonably possible, okay, that the women would get naked, the women would take their clothes off in the general backstage area, okay, and on top of that, we have so much evidence to demonstrate that it's reasonably possible and more that it did happen in the dressing rooms due to the fact that he said there's no men around, due to the fact that he said he abused his position of power in order to go into the space in the first place, due to the fact that at the end of the clip he said that he would get away with this, due to the fact that he said that the women were naked and changing, due to the fact that all of the women that remembered this occurring to them, so on and so forth, they testified to the fact that it would occur to them in the dressing rooms, not a general backstage area. Okay, we could all agree that it therefore happened in the dressing rooms. You would actually have a very high standard and burden of evidence here in order to refute this notion, because you would have to demonstrate a reasonable possibility that it occurred in the general backstage area, and that's something that you haven't. So far, all that you've done is you've demonstrated a mere logical possibility that it occurred in a general backstage area, no reasonable possibility. So because you haven't demonstrated a reasonable possibility of it occurring in a general backstage area, and because you agree that typically spaces where women are naked and changing will be women-only private dressing rooms, and because of all the other testimonies from pro-Trump people, anti-Trump people, and even Trump himself in that Howard Stern radio clip, we agree that therefore it has been proven it happened in the dressing room.
It hasn't been proven. You did not prove at any point.
Just because you say something doesn't make it true, Cam.
And on top of that, dude. And on top of that, all you've tried to do this entire debate is like just shift burdens, because you know the burden of proof when you make a positive claim is on you to prove, and you have.
And I did. Then you countered me proving it by saying that, Dean, you have a gap in your argument here, and that gap being the logical possibility of the contrary. But then I demonstrated that just because proof would include a logical possibility of the contrary doesn't mean that it's not proven. You then conceded on that notion. So then we revised the position to the gap in my proof being a reasonable possibility of the contrary. But then you were unable to demonstrate a reasonable possibility of the contrary. So you actually have failed to point out any gap in the proof in which I provided. And if you think I'm speaking gibberish, it's because I'm using phrases and terminology that you don't understand because I'm better educated than you in the subject matter. So feel free to ask me for the definition for any given word or any given phrase, and I'll be more than happy to give it to you.
Right. Right. Well, I think this conversation has reached its natural conclusion. Do you want to talk about something else, or do you want to kick it?
The reason why this conversation has not reached its natural conclusion is because I've caught you. I have finally caught you. You are arguing that I don't have enough proof because there's gaps in my evidence. You then stated those gaps to be a logical possibility of the contrary. Then you conceded that proof can include a logical possibility of the contrary, and then shifted the goalpost to that gap not being a logical possibility of the contrary, and rather being a reasonable possibility of the contrary, but then you were unable to prove the reasonable possibility of the contrary. So here's the question that remains. Is the gap in my proof a reasonable possibility of the contrary or not?
Is the gap in your logic a reasonable possibility to the contrary?
Yes.
Yeah, it's reasonably possible that they were changing backstage.
Okay.
Why?
Do you think that it's okay to believe in things without evidence?
You want to know why it's reasonably possible? I'll tell you exactly why. Because Trump said he was backstage and not in a dressing room.
The reason why that doesn't amount to a reasonable possibility is because the dressing rooms are backstage, dumbass. that would give an increase or a reduction in possibility for like either of the two hypotheses. It would be true under the hypothesis that it was a dressing room, and it would be true under the hypothesis that it was a general backstage area, that he'd be in the backstage area. So that actually would increase or reduce the likelihood of either of the two hypotheses being true, due to the fact that they're both in the backstage area. So now that we've surmounted such a shitty claim, here's the next question: Do you agree that it's not okay to believe in things without evidence?
Do I believe that it's okay to believe in things without evidence?
Yeah.
Is that question? Depends on what it is. Yeah.
It's okay to believe in things without evidence? What the fuck, Cam? What?
Well, I mean, it depends. I think it's okay to be like, if you're born into a Christian family and you practice the Christian faith, I think that it's okay to believe on faith and not evidence.
Wait, so you don't think that faith is evidence?
Not necessarily.
Oh God! Wait, so you think it's okay? So you think it's okay to be a Christian without evidence? Is that because you think that the Christian view is true?
Yeah. No, I do think that the Christian view is true.
But is that why you would argue that it's okay for people to be Christian without evidence?
Ask again?
Are you arguing that it's okay for people to be Christian without evidence because the Christian view is true?
No, I'm arguing that it's okay for people to be Christians without evidence.
Why?
I'm not saying I'm not citing that as evidence for the Christian view being true.
I know I know you that you're not citing that as evidence for the Christian view being true. The question is, are you arguing that it's okay for people to be Christian without evidence because the Christian view is true?
No, I think that it's okay.
Then why is it okay for people to be a Christian without evidence? Hello?
I think that people have the freedom to practice whatever religion they want. I think it's okay to be a Jew without evidence too. Which,
okay, so you think it's okay to be an anti-Trumper without evidence?
I think that it would be a poor view because all of the things that you're like, I think that it would be a poor view to be pro-Trump or anti-Trump without evidence because you live in an age where you can physically observe.
Okay, do you think it's a poor view to be Christian without evidence?
I think that you should probably think your position through, but like a 12-year-old who's a Christian isn't probably seeking evidence for why God is real.
Okay, so is it a poor view or not?
It's not as strong as one with evidence.
But is it a poor view?
I don't think it's as poor as like supporting or not supporting Trump.
Okay, but is it poor, point blank, period? By the way, the answer here is yes, it's a poor view, but we don't really care because they're 12. Like, clearly the reason why they hold to the poor view is because they're 12 and that's fine. Okay,
I don't think it's a poor view.
Why?
Yeah, because, I don't know. I think that it can provide lots of good things in a person's life if they practice faith, regardless of whether it's based on evidence.
Okay, so you're basically arguing that it's okay for people to believe in things without evidence insofar as those things generate, like, utility for themselves.
Not necessarily.
I mean, that's exactly what you just said. You said they could benefit benefit their lives. That's generating utility for themselves.
Why are we on this like sidewind conversation?
Because you said that it's sometimes okay to believe in things without evidence. In response to my question, is it ever okay to believe in things without evidence?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why we're here.
So what's wrong with my answer? Like, can we talk about something?
Well, I was just clarifying on your answer. So once again, is your answer arguing that it's okay to believe in things without evidence insofar as it provides social utility to the view?
Your whole tactic is just to try to keep me as far away from the topic as possible. That's your
we wouldn't be here if you could just agree that it's actually not a good thing to believe in things without evidence. That's the conclusion that I'm trying to work you down here to.
It can be completely neutral depending on what it is.
Okay, look at Trump supporters, ladies and gentlemen, arguing that it could be okay or neutral to believe in things without evidence. Okay, Cam. Yeah. But I would actually argue that we should try our best to only believe in things with sufficient evidence.
Is it okay to be a Christian, Dean? Is it okay to be a Christian, Dean?
From what perspective? From like a logically cohesive perspective, because I don't believe that there's sufficient evidence for the view to be true. No. However, from like a social perspective, insofar as like generating utility, like for them and their communities, sure. But we're making a distinction here between the logical perspective of like the reasons, the motivating reasons in which we hold the view to be true, and should we hold the view to be true in consideration to those reasons.
So you don't think it's
No.
you don't think it's okay for people to be Christians based on no evidence?
I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's okay in in the sense of reason.
Yeah. It's not like logically sound, or it's not like sound on a basis of like doing research and evidence and stuff. But I think that it's okay on like a moral basis. I think that everybody should have the freedom to, for the most part, do whatever they want.
Yes, I agree. There's circumstances, morally speaking, where it's not morally wrong to believe in things without sufficient evidence.
But I don't think those people are doing anything wrong per se if they like
morally
follow the
wrong.
Christian Jewish faith based on like a lack of evidence.
Yes, I agree. I agree that there's sometimes people are not doing anything morally wrong by holding to views without sufficient motivating reason. Okay, but I think I should better frame my answer, the question that I was asking here, not in a moral sense, but in this like sense of reasonability and logic. Okay, like should we hold to views without evidence?
I think for the most part, no.
Okay, I'm just going to run with that. For the most part, no. Perfect. So therefore, because we shouldn't hold to views without evidence, you shouldn't hold to the view that there's a reasonable possibility of the contrary, once again, in reference to Donald Trump barging into the dressing rooms of beauty pageant contestants without evidence, and you haven't demonstrated any evidence of a reasonable possibility of the contrary.
Yeah, the reasonable possibility of the contrary is that 11 people said they either didn't recall it or dismissed it out of hand, and Trump himself didn't say he went into dressing rooms. He said he went backstage, specifically backstage. When people say generally backstage, they're usually not talking about dressing rooms. They're talking about the area directly behind the curtain. Okay. Would you agree that when most people say backstage, that's what they mean, is the area backstage, not dressing rooms? Like, sure, backstage can encompass the dressing rooms, but generally if you say, oh, I got to go backstage, you're talking about the area behind the curtain, yes?
Many times, the backstage could just be the dressing rooms.
It could be, but what do you think most people mean when they say, I got to go backstage?
Well, I'd argue when you say,
I think they mean the space backstage.
I would argue here when you say, I got to go backstage into a place where I wasn't allowed to look at naked women, you're talking about dressing rooms.
I got to talk to a lot of my friends at AmFest who got to go backstage at AmFest. They got to go backstage at AmFest. They met JD Vance. It was awesome, right? Were they in the dressing room with JD Vance, or were they just backstage in the general area behind the Turning Point USA stage? What do you think?
Well, what I'd argue here is, let's just say that you had a friend that's a woman, okay? And this friend that's a woman went to AmFest, and then she told you, well, while I was at AmFest, I got to go backstage, and there are all these like naked men, and there was no women anywhere, and I got away with it, and they all look great. Okay, then that woman went into the men's only dressing room.
Yeah, AmFest isn't an event about aesthetics, looks, and beauty. Like your whole thing is not about how you look at AmFest. It's more
Wait, do you actually accept that? Wait, whoa. Do you accept that if like a friend of yours that was a woman went to AmFest and I went backstage at AmFest and there are all these naked men and there were no women anywhere and I had to lie to get back there. I claimed I was the owner of AmFest to do an inspection and I got away with it. Would she have been in the men's dressing room at AmFest?
You are literally strawmanning.
Can you just answer the question?
This wouldn't happen at AmFest because AmFest is not an event about how you look and dressing up and trying to get men to think you look beautiful.
So then you were bad faith by bringing up AmFest at all. You were strawmanning because you're the one that mentioned AmFest.
Do I get to respond?
Sure, but I just want to clarify. You just accused me of strawmanning for bringing up AmFest. Who brought up AmFest? Because it sure as hell wasn't me.
We're going to do a challenge impossible. It's that I'm going to talk and you're not. Okay. I'm going to respond to what you have to say without you spurging out on your live stream.
Okay? Eddie's losing it. Losing it. Dude, I'm kicking ass right now, guys. This is
the reason that I brought up AmFest is because these are two events that both have backstage areas, one that I'm familiar with. Okay. So you said that, well, what if a girl went backstage at AmFest and everybody was naked and okay, well, that wouldn't happen at AmFest because the events we're talking about are two completely different events. One,
so then what Donald Trump said wouldn't happen at AmFest.
Dean, I'm not done. You're trying to derail me.
Wow,
I'm talking about one event where the entire thing is about going and speaking and spreading a political message, and the other one is literally just about men judging women on how they look. Which one do you think it could possibly be that women were half naked backstage? Possibly the women's beauty pageant might have half naked women backstage. I think that's perfectly reasonable based on Trump's comments based on the comments of the women who were in the dressing rooms, I think it's perfectly possible that that's the case.
Okay, well, we've already agreed that that's not perfectly reasonable to assume predicated on Trump's comments, okay? And we actually demonstrated that not only through the analogy to AmFest, but also
opinion.
through what his comments were with the naked women, in a space where he wasn't allowed to be, had to abuse his position of power to get back there. Not to mention that if he was talking about the dressing rooms, he could have just said backstage, because maybe the backstage area of the dressing room of the pageant was just the dressing rooms. And there's absolutely no reason for you to believe any reasonable level of possibility that this was just the general backstage area predicated on by the comments of the women. Because when we look at the comments of the women, out of all of the women that remember and recount what Donald Trump is referring to in this audio clip, they all said that it was the private dressing room.
Right, and then 11 of them say they don't remember it. Most of them saying it definitely didn't happen with almost certainty.
Exactly, but we know that it happened because of the Howard Stern clip. Okay, we're just trying to determine where it happened.
Right, and you have not proven that it's impossible to have happened backstage and absolutely happened in the dressing room.
Exactly. So now you're saying the gap in my proof is the logical possibility of the contrary. You know that we could prove things with
Well, it's also that you haven't proven that it was the dressing room. Like, you need to prove it's more about proving the affirmative that it was the dressing room.
No. You argued, once again, you're arguing that I haven't proven it because of the logical possibility of the contrary. That's why you say I haven't proven it, Cam.
Well, there is a logical possibility of the contrary. It doesn't even matter.
Exactly. That is not amount to me not of.
There's a reasonable possibility to the contrary. Whatever you
But
want to say.
remember, you haven't been able to prove the reasonable possibility of the contrary.
I have. Based on
No,
the
you
fact
haven't.
that Trump didn't say dressing room, he said backstage. And generally, when people say backstage, they mean the area behind the stage, behind the curtain, not dressing rooms. And I don't even remember what the other thing I said was. I said something else, but I don't remember what it was.
Okay. Once again, I've already responded to this. The reason why Donald Trump saying backstage does not indicate a reasonable possibility.
Dean, I don't care. I've already heard your argument on this. I just don't. I don't care.
Okay. So then respond to the argument that I gave to debunk the notion that was a reasonable.
I already responded to you, and you didn't.
No, you just repeated the fact that you think it was a reasonable possibility.
Dude,
you didn't respond to my counter argument against the notion that it wasn't a reasonable possibility.
Repeat myself for 30 minutes.
Wait, I want to clarify. You have not at one time in this argument given a refutation to my counter argument against the notion that that is a reasonable possibility. You've only reasserted and repeated the fact that you think it's a reasonable possibility.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable possibility.
And I proved otherwise.
Based on the fact that Trump did not use the term dressing room, he used the term backstage, and that generally, linguistically, when people use the word backstage, they mean the area directly behind the stage, behind the curtain.
Okay, how do you know at these events that the area directly behind the curtain wasn't just the dressing room for the women and girls?
Every area, what do you mean? That would mean that they would have no neutral space where they go in privacy.
No neutral space.
The area behind you're asking me why I think that they don't walk directly out of the dressing rooms onto the runway?
Okay, I guess so. That would assert that there was probably some amount of area backstage. No, fair point, Cam. That would assert that there was some amount of area backstage in between the dressing rooms and the runway. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so we just agreed that the backstage was comprised of dressing rooms, a small area right outside of the dressing rooms, and then the runway.
It could have been a small area. It could have been a large area. We don't know.
Okay. Well, the reason why we know it's not a reasonable possibility that they were changing the general area compared to the dressing rooms is because they had a dressing room to get changed in, because women were naked. It wasn't just one woman, it was multiple. And because Donald Trump said that he had abused his position of power and privilege to go into this space, under the guise of doing an inspection, and he got away with it. And in consideration of all these facts, plus the fact that anybody who could recount any experience, is telling us that this happened in a private women's only dressing room. How do you feel about that? So basically what it seems like is that Donald Trump was being vague when he was talking to Howard Stern about where he would go into. I don't think that he was being vague at all.
I think he was being hyperbolic, actually.
I don't think that he was being vague at all, because he described a dressing room. But even if we assume that he was being vague, and we just can't determine if it was a dressing room or the general backstage area.
I don't think.
Well, the reason why we can determine it was a dressing room is because all the women who recounted this experience of what he admitted to on Howard Stern's radio show said it happened in a dressing room. That's what refutes the notion.
All of the not the women who recounted, the women who alleged that they recounted it. because it hasn't been proven.
Wait, no, he definitely went in one of the two areas. We already agreed on it. It has been proven that he either did this earlier. Yeah. Yes, we did. It has been proven that he either did this in the general backstage area or in the dressing room, right?
Right. You have not proven that it was the dressing room.
But see, the thing is I have, okay? And the cherry on top is the fact that every single contestant that recounts this happening, what Donald Trump is referring to in the clip, says it was in the private women's only dressing room.
Right, because nobody would say, oh, I saw the owner backstage. Like, obviously, duh. Nobody would talk about this.
Well, you're positing that in the clip he was talking about the general backstage area.
Yes.
So yes, if they were getting dressed in the general backstage area and that's where Donald Trump saw them, that's what they'd say. They wouldn't lie and say that it happened in the private women's only dressing room. You're positing that every single woman who could recount an experience was lying.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
11 women dismissed the idea that it could have possibly happened completely out of hand.
But once again, we know that it happened. We know that it happened either in the general backstage area.
We know that he either went backstage or in the dressing room.
Exactly. So we know that it happened. So we know that those other 11 women just weren't there. Okay? Because we know it happened because that's what he said, either in the general backstage area or the dressing room. Yes, we're arguing here that we know it occurred either in the dressing room or in the backstage area. Yes or no?
Right. But nobody would be surprised.
Answer my question. Right or wrong, do we know that it either happened in the general backstage area? Okay, so because we know that it either happened in the general backstage area of the dressing rooms, and every single woman who remembers this says that it happens in the dressing rooms, this only furthers to prove the notion that it happened in the dressing rooms.
That's not true that every woman said that it happened in the dressing rooms.
Yes, again, every woman who recounted the experience. You're not listening to me, Cam. This is the issue.
I am listening to you perfectly.
Oh my God.
If 11 women can say it's probably more like 8 or 9 because it says 11 women, most of them dismissed the idea out of hand. Do you think
because they weren't there? Wait, can we agree that the reason why they dismissed it is because they weren't there?
Dean, do I get to finish?
Sure.
How do you know that they weren't there and they never saw Trump backstage when somebody was changing? How do you know that for certain?
Because we know for certain that Donald Trump went backstage and or into the dressing room while people were changing.
So because a group of women say, I know with absolute certainty that Donald J. Trump never entered the women's dressing room, how do you know as a certainty that those women never saw Trump backstage when women were changing? How do you know that for a fact?
Okay, so yeah, we can reasonably conclude that they didn't see him backstage while women were changing for a fact, because there's no reasonable possibility that women were backstage changing and that Donald Trump would walk back in there while they were changing. There you go. Wait. You're interrupting me. You're interrupting me. I'm legitimately giving you the argument. The reason that we know that we could say it's proven, okay, that they didn't see Donald Trump in the general backstage area while women were changing is because we can't assert the reasonable possibility that Donald Trump would walk back into the general backstage area while women were changing. They had a place to do that, and I think that's what you're failing to recognize. At these organized events, they have to change in the area that is designating for them to be changing in, because it's a liability issue. Okay, these organizations cannot take on the liability issue of having naked women in a general area changing. They can't take that on, because then that could lead to lawsuits against the organization. That could lead to lawsuits against employees. Okay, that's what Donald Trump determined for himself, and that's why he's such a piece of shit. Okay, as an organization. He doesn't
care about that liability. He probably wouldn't care about the liability of women.
He doesn't care about the liability for him. He does for other people. That's the issue. Is that if these women were just changing. Listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying, because you're confusing me. He doesn't care about that liability for him. He cares about that liability for other people. See, if women were just getting naked in a general backstage area and then a man walked back, a man that wasn't him, somebody working on the production team, somebody working with the judging team, okay, well then they could be facing a potential liability issue of the company or that company's employee getting sued for sexual harassment, sexual exploitation, voyeurism, so on and so forth. Or they'd have to take on the liability of, someone later claiming that they were coerced into getting naked in this general area by the owner of the pageant, by the managers of the pageant, for whatever reason. So obviously, when we're looking at these standard organized events, for the same reason that when a woman's going to a gym, she can't just get ready and dressed into her gym apparel in the general area, or when a woman is going to a theater play, she can't just strip down and get naked right backstage where everyone else is, including the men. Okay, they have designated changing rooms for that purpose. Okay, the designating changing rooms are for the comfortability of the women that are getting naked, because typically, generally, women will feel most comfortable getting naked only around other women, as well as for the comfortability of everybody else in that space. Because the other men that would be working backstage would not want to see the naked women.
Being there is to show off their sexual prowess. The entire reason that, what are you talking about? They'd only be comfortable being naked in front of other women. Like, this is so ridiculous. Their entire
because they weren't naked on stage.
Their entire purpose in doing a women's beauty pageant is to show off their sexual prowess. It's ridiculous.
Hey, the thing that I said, because were they naked on stage? Were they naked on stage?
I let you talk.
Answer my question. Were they naked on stage?
I let you talk.
Wait, so you think that Donald Trump owned a beauty pageant to show off the sexual prowess of minors?
They weren't minors. They were
Miss
women.
Teen USA 15 minimum.
We're talking about Miss USA.
Wait, so then what was the entire purpose of Miss Teen USA?
He said women. Now let me respond.
No, that's not even what I'm referring to. You said that the entire point of these events is to show off the sexual prowess of the attendees. So are you arguing here that the entire point of the Miss Teen USA event was to show off the sexual prowess of the 15-year-olds?
That's what the women are doing. I think that women's and girls' beauty pageants are a little bit different from each other.
Okay. So the 15-year-olds were not competing for the reason of showing off their sexual prowess. So then why would the women have to be competing for the reason of quote unquote showing off their sexual prowess?
Do you think that that's what women who participate in beauty pageants are trying to do? And let me respond here, because I let you talk for a long time and didn't say anything. I sure wanted to, but I didn't. So yes, I think that when women go participate in a beauty pageant, their objective is to show off their sexual prowess, how attractive they are, how good their bodies look in tight
with clothes on.
Obviously, that's what they're doing because it's
with
exactly
clothes on. Yes, to show off some prowess with clothes on.
Dean Withers, I'm not finished. What you posited was that the beauty pageant.
It's not even necessarily sexual prowess either. It's just some form of prowess.
Dean, I'm not finished. Dean, I'm not finished. What you posited was that when when this beauty pageant, which is owned by Donald J. Trump, when they're having to deal with the possibility of women changing backstage, they could never, ever possibly allow women to change backstage at a beauty pageant. Because it would be
I don't think that they could.
Dean,
nope. They don't even do that at strip clubs, bro.
Dean, I'm not finished.
Okay, I'm just simply answering your question. They don't even do that at strip clubs.
Well, Dean, the good news is I didn't ask you a question. I was simply stating what you posited. You posited that they could never allow this to happen. They could never allow women to change backstage at a beauty pageant because of liability issues, the potentiality that they might possibly get sued. But you think that same beauty pageant with Donald Trump as its head, its owner, its operator, would be okay with allowing the owner to walk into the women's changing room, because that apparently doesn't pose a potential liability issue. It doesn't make any sense. And you said, well, that's different. It's his liability versus the pageant's liability.
It's his liability versus the liability of others. I'm not going to let you misconstrue my argument to try to win a debate that you can't win, because it's only losable by default from your perspective.
I wasn't done talking.
I mean, look at the person who's calling the other person a dog.
When he walks into that dressing room, he is acting as the owner and operator of that pageant in that capacity. Therefore, the liability absolutely, fundamentally, and positively would be on both the beauty pageant and Donald Trump.
The reason why it would be on the beauty pageant and Trump is because Trump is the owner doing it, and he's okay with accepting that liability regardless if it's on him or the pageant that he owns, when it's him doing it, not when it's other people doing it, okay? This is exactly why in the clip he said the reason why he'd be able to do it is because he's the owner. He's the owner. Him, Donald Trump, nobody else, okay? And I think that this makes sense to anybody with more than half of a brain. Clearly, Donald Trump would be okay with himself doing this thing that could create a liability, but he wouldn't be okay with somebody else doing this thing that could create a liability. Because if it's somebody else creating a liability, well, then he has to pay for that liability when he didn't get the gratification out of the sexual exploitation in the space. But he's okay with accepting the likelihood of that liability as it would relate to himself, because he's getting that self-perceived benefit of the sexual exploitation that's occurring in the space. And then you also said that in default of the fact that the women are competing at these pageants to demonstrate some sense of prowess demonstrates a reasonable possibility that they'd be willing to get naked in the general backstage area. The first thing that we have to consider is it's not just the woman's willingness to get naked in that area that is why they would not allow the women to do it, but it is also everybody else who would be in the area. We have to consider the employees, regardless male or female, man or woman, that wouldn't want to see a naked person when they're just trying to set the cameras up, when they're just trying to set the lightings up, when they're just trying to set the backstage, maybe put some waters, maybe put some snacks. Okay, that right there is why, with the standard procedures of these beauty pageant contestants, or any form, maybe it's like a camera from the back of the stage that they'd put off to like back right, back left to get the back shot as they're walking forwards. Yes, you would. But anyways, my point still stands here is that this creates a scenario that would either be uncomfortable for the women because they don't want to get changed in this general backstage setting, or uncomfortable for like all of the employees, all of the production people, all of the assistants, all of the staging people, where they just want to be able to do their job, set the stage, set up some snacks, the backstage cameras, so on and so forth, okay, without having to see a naked woman. So that on its own is why at organized events like beauty pageants, like theaters, and even fucking strip clubs, mind you, that in general backstage areas, okay, that are omni-gender, anybody that is working with the pageant with a reason to be there can be, we do not allow people to be naked. This is like, by the way, something that we could all understand.
You don't think strippers get naked at strip clubs in omni-gender areas?
Yeah, so strippers actually, they don't get naked in general backstage areas when they're not like actively serving to clientele, when they're just hanging out like backstage, maybe with a bouncer that's about to start their shift in the next 30 minutes, so on and so forth. Their chill room, they don't get naked, no. And when they get naked to change, they have their own space where men aren't allowed. Even bouncers of strip clubs will tell you that they do not allow men into the changing room of strippers at strip clubs.
Yeah. So do you think that there are any strip clubs or pageants or any kind of place or event where the purpose is to show off the attractiveness of a woman, where rules are maybe a little bit more lax or regulations aren't followed, especially in a time like 1997? Do you think that's possible?
Oh, okay. So now you're actually accepting that this would be the rule, but it's maybe possible that they were lax on it.
I never said it wasn't the rule. I said that I still think it's unlikely that it was a rule. I think that regulations are obviously much more harsh now. Yeah, I think it's unlikely that it's the rule. If your logic is, well, Trump didn't want to.
I just feel like I'm going crazy.
Is that Trump
I'm going to put Mr. Cam Higby on mute. I feel like I'm going crazy here. Okay? It is just so fucking clear. It is so clear to anybody with a brain that when we're looking at not just one, not just two, but a group of women, a big group of women that are naked and getting dressed in an area where men aren't allowed, and that a man is doing something wrong by entering in at a standardized, organized charter event by the largest beauty pageant in the world, Miss Universe, Miss USA, that this will be a private dressing room for women. That's something else that we have to understand here, that Miss USA and Miss Universe, these were the rinky-dink, run-of-the-mill, small-time pageants, okay, and like small towns where the rules would be lax. No, these were the largest beauty pageants in the world, okay, where they had standardized crew for everything, assistants, staff, production, staging, and the general backstage areas weren't just for the women, okay, but they were for everybody who was staging the event, preparing it all, getting it ready for the assistants, for even some family members, okay. And if we're going to be looking at a large group of women who are naked and changing, where men aren't supposed to be, where no men are, that men are doing something wrong by entering in, we're talking about a dressing room. See, the thing is, Cam, clearly, I think you have the intelligence to understand what I'm saying, but your brain has gone to mush because it's about Trump. So many Americans have this problem where they can be more reasonable people in some senses outside of politics, but then the moment we make it about politics, you become like little drooling toddlers watching Cocomelon on a sticky fucking iPad. Let's face the facts. Big group of naked women changing in a space where no men aren't allowed. Donald Trump has to literally create a fictitious lie that he's doing an inspection, abusing his position of power as the owner to go in, and then he acknowledges that it's wrong for him to be in this space. And this is also under the standard operational procedures of the world's largest beauty pageant, where we would not expect to see naked women in a space that's not just for naked women, but also for the crew and the staff, people that wouldn't necessarily want to see naked women. This is a dressing room.
I don't think it tracks for you to say that in 1997 you wouldn't expect to see these things at this beauty pageant, considering you've neither been to the beauty pageant.
Okay, prove that we would expect it.
You're the one making the claim, not me. The positive is on you. You have to prove it. The burden of proof is on you again, Dean. You're trying to
yeah, sure. Because random staffers are just as uncomfortable today with seeing people's naked bodies as they would 30 years ago.
I am not done.
There's the proof. Random staffers are uncomfortable with seeing people's naked bodies unexpectedly and unconsensually today as they would be 30 years ago.
Really? That's crazy. Well, you know what else is uncomfortable? Black people being slaves, but it still happened. You saying people were uncomfortable doesn't mean it didn't happen, Dean, okay? You know that it's reasonably possible that it happened. You weren't alive in 1997. You've never been to the beauty pageants, so you can't rule it out as an impossibility, which you're trying to do. And then when I point that out, you try to shift the
I'm not trying to rule it out as an impossibility. I'm trying to rule it out as an unreasonable possibility. I'm trying to rule it out as a reasonable possibility.
Based on what? Based on what evidence, Dean?
Based on the evidence that there was no men around, based on the evidence that Donald Trump said he had to abuse his position of power as the owner of the pageant and go into the space under the fictitious guise of doing an inspection, based upon the fact that every woman who recounted this experience said it occurred in a private women's only dressing area, based on the fact that Donald Trump acknowledged that he was doing something wrong by entering into this space, based upon the fact that the only argument you have is the technical possibility of the contrary. Like, check this out. Why would Donald Trump say... Why would there be no men around if it wasn't a private space for women only?
Oh, do you think that it's possible that there were
Exactly! Do you think it's possible? That's been your only counter argument this whole time, Mr. Cam. Do you think it's possible that it's just a general backstage area, Dean? Do you think that it's possible that there just really could have been no men around? Do you think that it's possible that all the women that said that it happened in a private women's only area were just lying? Do you think that it's possible that when Donald Trump said that he'd get away with it, he wasn't representing a moral conflict of value, but rather some other conflict of value? Do you think it's possible that when he created this fictitious persona of going back into that space under the guise of doing an inspection, claiming that he could only do it because he was the owner? That is exactly my point, Cam, and this is why you have been cooked in this debate, because you have no legitimate counter-argument to any data point that I've given you this whole conversation to demonstrate that he went into private women's only dressing rooms, and every single time I give you another data point to represent that Donald Trump went into the private women's only dressing rooms. So the same thing that we hear in response as well, Dean, is it technically logically possible, in the same sense that it's logically possible unicorns exist, pigs could fly, or we have 5 gods, that this actually wasn't a private woman's dressing room, regardless if it's in reference to the women line, regardless if it's in reference to there being no men around, regardless if it's in reference to the standard operational procedures of the world's largest beauty pageant shows, regardless if it's in reference to the fact that Donald Trump said he had to abuse his special privilege, or regardless of the fact that he said he got away with it. This is why Donald Trump's approval rating is only 41% going down by the day. This is why so many people are hopping off that burning Trump train every single fucking day. More people leaving the cult and hopping onto the right side of history, because you don't have fact, you don't have reason, and you don't have good argumentation. All you have is sophistry and embarrassment. And I also, one last thing before I'm done here and I pass the mic back off to you, this is only pushing more people towards my side. What do you think the average viewer, apolitical, maybe even right-leaning of this live stream hears when you sit up here and you say, well, Dean, I don't believe it was a dressing room because it's technically possible that men were there because men weren't working that day. It's technically possible because he could have been abusing his position of power as the owner of the pageant under some guise because he felt like he needed to go into the general backstage